What is up, everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to one and all to Reality Decoded. And thank you once again for choosing to tune in to this latest installment brought to you from Ship Video Productions in Honks with the comment of the night. That is Set the Bar. I actually saw a notification for this stream. Who did I have to blow at YouTube to have that happen? Boy's got to have his secrets, Honks, but and it is nice to know that somebody did get notified that we are streaming, and so far it says we've got 7 watching. Not a bad start to the proceedings. So welcome back, everyone. It's been a while, couple of weeks since the last ill-fated stream that was shut down courteously by the community standards algorithmic team that watches over us, make sure we're safe from harm and not seeing or hearing or talking about anything they would rather not do. And welcome, Baby P. It's been such a long time since we've had you in the chat. It's already gonna be a little bit of a special night, this June the 6th. No, it's not June the 6th, it's June the 18th. Sorry, my apologies. I got the month and the day back to front. But nonetheless, guys, welcome back. We as I was saying, a couple of weeks ago was the last time we did attempt to do a stream, and 3 times in a row that last Friday night we were shut down. The algorithm shut that shit down 3 times, where we were exposing a little bit the deep states candidates and players, and the narrative that they are providing for the all-out alien agenda, and something we have been talking an awful lot about recent weeks and months at Reality Decoded and previously at TSP TV is the alien agenda, Project Bluebeam, the deep state's final card, as they do usher us in towards the one world order. But we are going to step a little bit back onto Earth and look at some of the ways that the atmosphere and the mind and the environment is being controlled to make us little less than copy and pasted, cloned, opinionated drones that will be serving a variety of purposes as pawns and maybe delivery systems of deep state propaganda inadvertently against our will. And it is going to be a little bit of a refresh at some familiar topics that we have already discussed many times at great length before here at Reality and TSP TV. So let me get rid of the thumbnail and say hello. Welcome back, guys. Although I am in black and white, you may or may not be aware I am a few shades darker since the last time you've seen me. And another sort of reason we're not really as regularly streaming at Reality Decoded at the moment is sort of throughout the winter months when it's dark and dank and cold outside, I was stuck in my little basement, crawling up the walls, scratching my head sometimes, wondering what to do, and sometimes wishing I never woke up at all. So some of the presentations and stuff that I sort of put a lot of heart and soul and effort into to deliver, that maybe 10 people good day would get to watch, and on a bad day it would be inadvertently shut down by our good friends at the community standards team. But it did give me a little bit of a purpose and a little bit of a routine, and it did play a very important part in keeping me sane. But now the weather's changed, as you should know. I'm out and about as much as possible, and quite frankly I've been enjoying going down to the beach without my phone, without the tripods, and just sitting and staring out at the lake and at the birds rather than staring at the walls of the solitary confinement of my basement for the last 8 months. But I do want to sort of keep Reality Decoded a little bit active and try and keep a little bit of a regularity if I can, as well as doing some out and about streams over on TSP TV. Some of you guys may have caught Midnight at the Cove. We did a midnight live stream down there, me and a couple of the girls that you may be familiar with at the moment, or from last year out and about escapades. But Reality Decoded is my main channel. I do find myself enjoying putting videos together and presentations together for Reality Decoded. And not that I have lost interest in TSP TV, but it's become so shadow banned, so passively censored, as is sort of the case is turning out to be here at Reality Decoded. But as I said, I've sort of lost a little bit of interest in heart in TSP TV. We will sort of be keeping that active, and as I said, throughout the summer, hopefully some out and about stuff, maybe a ration review or two if I can be asked to do that. Hopefully I will, but we've got the summer ahead, hopefully a lot more outside broadcast. But as I said, I do want to try and bring some regular content to Reality Decoded, because this is sort of my main channel, and in the sort of 6 months or so that this channel's been in existence, I've probably put an awful lot more effort, and probably more effort and time and sweat and tears and stuff into these presentations than I ever did at TSP TV. And this evening's presentation has sort of turned out to be a little bit of a labor in love, and although I digressed a little bit, it does kind of start a little bit back where we were with the stream that was shut down 3 times in a row, All Out Apocalypse. And it was All Out Apocalypse Part 2, where I sort of did an update on some of the topics we covered in All Out Apocalypse Part 1, which were all things that I've been talking to you guys about and telling you is going to happen over the last 12 months or so, actually closer to 60 months under the COVIDian era, and sort of longer before that over on TSP TV. And that article contained a lot about aliens, zombies, and asteroids, among a few other interesting apocalyptical events that has been sneaking into the mainstream and providing some kind of seed plantation. And are we actually getting the luxury of sort of choosing our own apocalypse, judging on the popularity or the amount of interest generated by these mainstream outlets publishing so many articles about aliens, asteroids, zombies, yada yada, whoopie woo, ray tay tay? You know that. But unfortunately, we didn't get through the alien segment, which did make up about half of that presentation, and we didn't even get to hear half the shit about the zombie apocalypse and how they're planning some zombie programming, as well as some updates on asteroids in NASA. Good old NASA, never a straight answer, sending up their own sort of unmanned ship in attempt to divert an asteroid. If not, that asteroid is a threat to human, if it is a simulation or a drill about to go live, who knows. But there was a lot of content in there that was shut down 3 times in a row. And a couple of days afterwards, we did a stream, or I did a stream, you guys just tuned in, where I did plan to go on presentation 3 and just sort of talked for, off the cuff in an attempt to sort of overcome, if there's no content or copyright material, then hopefully we can't get shut down. And sort of due to public demand at the time, say public demand, about the 10 or so people that may have been watching at the time, they asked if they could see a presentation, an upload that I'd put up on YouTube earlier that day. And I have been sort of trying to think of maybe putting uploads rather than always going live, just maybe try and sort of make a shorter condensed video to upload rather than having to go through the whole process of live streaming. Again, some of this stuff is then you can watch at your leisure or share if you choose to, and sometimes the case with live streams, unless you sort of watch it live, it's almost unlikely that people in after the event will be that interested. Welcome, Mrs. Al, glad to see you. But as I said, there's a lot of content. It got shut down. I managed to get through the upload that I put the day, and we're having a little bit of success. And maybe we raised a red flag to the algorithm, and I said, guys, do you want to double bill, choose your own content? Do you want to try and restream the presentation that got shut down 3 times in a row? And lo and behold, it did get shut down once again. Just to reiterate, if you do want to see that presentation in its entirety, it is available as an upload for you to watch. You can watch it in segments, chunks, don't have to watch it all in one go. It is a little bit long, but if you are interested about the apocalyptical zombies and asteroid events, please check that out. But this presentation, back to where we are tonight, sorry again, do digress a little bit. This stream for this evening was actually intended for last Friday. And sort of last Thursday, I started to piece a little bit together some screen recordings for this evening's presentation, or what was intended for last Friday's presentation. And then that carried on into Friday, where I did a few more screen recordings and some stuff that I wanted to put in as tonight's content. And I do use a screen recorder, which has the option to disable the external mic or the internal mic. So when I do screen recordings, I set it on internal mic, and then it doesn't pick up anything in the background, which then, you know, I can sort of go about my business and don't have to keeping, you know, deadly silent. And when I do my screen recordings, when I read articles and stuff, I switch it to external microphone. So I did quite a bit of sort of screen recording on internal microphone. Everything was good. Sort of started setting that up in my editor app, and went about recording the stuff that I wanted to read off an articles, and did a couple of hours worth. And lo and behold, somehow, some way, the software, the algorithm, the application, the camera app, the screen recorder disabled the microphone. So I had like a couple of hours of footage that just had no audio, and you can't really use just the words, and it's like, do I read over it? What do I do? I don't know. But it kind of put me off my deadline, which meant it wasn't going to happen last Friday night. And it actually, all my microphone, my video, my camera, all my apps that had access to the microphone didn't work, but I was able to record internal stuff. Now, if or not that is just a glitch in my phone, or if that is targeted algorithmic interference, let's shut this fucker up, let's disable his software. We shut my stream down 3 or 4 times, and then lo and behold, when I try to put together another presentation, there are glitches within my software. Not only that, I've also spoken recently and before about experiencing symptoms that are symptoms that you can experience as a result of electromagnetic frequencies and radio frequencies. And if or not that is what the symptoms are, they might purely be psychosomatic. But I have experienced quite a lot of weird symptoms recently, and some of you guys also had particularly sort of headaches. There's a little burp for you, baby B. And another one. Sorry, I did have a huge supper before I went on air and did chunk almost a gallon of milk. Whoa, 15 people watching. When did that happen? This is almost uncharted territory. But as I said, I've been experiencing some very bizarre sort of headaches, pains in the bottom of my neck, prominently on the left side. Also had some sort of weird fluttering and sort of palpitations in the chest, as well as feeling extremely lethargic, and sometimes like my joints, my elbows, my knees, and my ankles in particular, just feel like cast iron, and are very uncomfortable. Now, we have been having a lot of nice weather recently, but last weekend, Sunday and Monday in particular, Sunday we had a lot of torrential rain, and then Monday a very bizarre thunderstorm. Honk, sure, Torontonian. Confirm with me there was a fucking bizarre thunderstorm on Monday. But Sunday, I could not wake up for love nor money. I was dead to the world. Even when I woke up, I wasn't even awake, and I spent literally most of the day in bed. Then the Monday, when it was very stormy, I don't know, I just felt very depressed, and having sort of been very happy and joyous at the beach, like, you know, less than a few hours earlier, I'm almost back to the deepest, darkest days of February, when, you know, I do start to crawl up the walls a little bit in the winter sickness, and you go a little bit stir crazy. But as I said, I've experienced some of these, and I know 1 or 2 of you, when I have mentioned it before, have also experienced stuff like this. Now, also a couple of weeks ago, I did put another upload, Havana Syndrome, and a little bit like the alien agenda that once upon a time was tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff. People in their basement that fantasize over such things, is now been elevated to, yeah, this is a fucking threat to national security, and on a need to know basis, government have asked for the alphabet agencies, all their classified documents, everything they got. We need to look at this, and we need to decide what we're going to do. But the Havana Syndrome, again, electromagnetic frequencies, brain control with radio waves and such forth, was the fuel that spawned the tin foil hat conspiracy that was always ridiculized and laughed off. You don't believe people are really controlling your brain with electromagnetic frequencies. However, in recent weeks, with the announcement of the Havana syndrome, the government and the mainstream are acknowledging that this technology exists. And they do assure you, and rest assured, guys, it isn't black budget US secret technology that they use in experiments. It is likely the Russians or Chinese, or maybe just like the unidentified aerial phenomenon formerly known as UFOs, that the government say, yeah, you know what, it's not our technology, rest assured it's not black budget US technology, it's probably the Russians or the Chinese, and we can't rule out aliens. Maybe this technology might be blamed on the visitors, for want of a better word. We can't necessarily call them aliens, but the alien agenda is all out. The seed plantation is done and it's beginning to blossom. And in the background, in the aftermath of this, the announcement of this electromagnetic frequency attacks on governmental officials, over 130 of them since the Havana syndrome, have now governments passed off a bill to offer relief to victims of this. So the government is now acknowledged that this stuff is existed. Now, I've also put an awful lot of lists to patents and articles regarding this stuff, and it is something we have talked about an awful lot at TSP TV. So this evening's presentation is going to be a little bit of a refresher, and it is going to be some topics familiar to you, but it is ever much as important as it is now as it was then. I'm not telling you what to believe, I'm just providing you alternative information for educational purposes so you can decide. And the deep state don't want us thinking for ourselves. They don't want us to make our own thoughts and opinions count. They want us to share and agree with a desired opinion, and they want us to copy and paste opinions, clones and drones. That is what the deep state is turning us into, human robots. And you're going to see this evening, fingers crossed, providing we don't get shut down again, various ways that we can be turned into human robots and the technology that exists to be able to do so. Welcome Joe, Modus, Martha, Becky, I've already said hello. Maiden, you're here. Devil, we're down to 12, but it does look like we do have a good creep. Welcome Kelly Kibo, glad you're here. There might even be a little tiny Easter egg just for you if you pay attention long enough. And I think I've covered everyone. If I haven't, my apologies. I do try to, or am trying a little bit to maybe sort of jump into the presentation a little bit sooner than later, but this evening we did have a little bit of catching up to do. Sorry if I've bored you with my ramblings up until this point. So I am going to get the presentation lined up and ready to go. Fingers crossed, everyone. May the force be with us. Be generous and kind to us, algorithm. We're just sharing information for a handful of people. I'm a non-profit organization. I don't make any profit at all, to be quite honest with you. If anything, I'm a loss of profit organization, loss of profit non-organization. And the following presentation is for educational and informative purposes under the Fair Use Act, and we might even do a little bit of satirical commentary in the chat to accompany it, to just put all the trinity of things that make fair use legal. But anyway, thought control is the title of this evening's topic. And yeah, actually Kelly, you were a guest speaker and we did speak a little about this and your experience in a cult. Great stuff. Check that out if I can remember what the title of that stream was called. But this evening's stream is Thought Control. As I said, fair use, yada yada, whoop-de-woo, ray-tay-tay. That is a disclaimer. Get yourself comfy, get into position. All your things you need, your snacks, your smokes. If you need to go take a pee, we do have a little very short intro once again to this evening's presentation. I'm going to turn off the mic and come and join you guys in the live chat. So I'm not going to say enjoy this because it's probably the less of enjoyable content, but please sort of pay attention and hopefully you will learn a thing or two.
warfighters, the highly secretive Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, or DARPA, is developing tools to read the brain on a level 10,000 times more detailed than current technology allows. How hard is the military angle or the military application as far as a rule for DARPA projects?
It's required. I mean, that's what DARPA is about, right? And so we're about the warfighter and making sure that we don't have any sort of military surprise. So we're out there looking at some of the most revolutionary technologies to make sure that we understand what they are, how they're going to work, what would be militarily relevance, and having folks and labs in the United States that are well versed in building these technologies is all good for the military.
Do you foresee a manner in which kind of the work you're doing could be used to enhance human thought, or like more of a supplement than a medicine?
Enhancement is not necessarily a bad thing if we could improve behavior, but we certainly don't want these kinds of interventions to be abused. However, if it can be abused, that means it's effective.
Right.
So that's a problem I'm happy to help fight when it presents itself.
To me, the BCI opportunities for the future are huge. Yeah. I really see it as a disruptive technology, but we need to do it very ethically, right, legally, and make sure we understand the social implications of this.
Because you can do a lot of damage in there.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Thought Control, and hopefully you have taken your protein pills and put your helmet/headphones on for this latest installment of Reality Decoded, brought to you from Shit Video Productions. And this evening we are going to be looking at some topics that should be familiar to some of the more attentive regular offenders here at the Thrift Store Studio, but it is also very important in recent light of the announcement of what is being referred to as the Havana Syndrome, and very, very similarly to the deep state's alien agenda. All of a sudden we are seeing government and agencies acknowledging the fact that directed energy weapons and electromagnetic radio frequency technology that can alter and disrupt behavioral and mind patterns does exist. And since Havana Syndrome was uploaded on Reality Decoded, very, very poor return in views. However, the government has signed off a bill in the United States to offer relief to any individuals that are suffering of symptoms as a result of what is being called Havana Syndrome, which is being used to describe victims of electromagnetic radio frequency directed energy weaponry attacks. So without any further ado, guys, thanks for tuning in again. Let's start off with an article, and we do have some videos and maybe one or two articles to get through, although one of the articles is a little bit long, but we will try to sort of fast track as much as we can. And as I said, some of this stuff should be a little bit familiar to some of the regular offenders, and you can kind of see there we've got a couple of individuals that look as though they've had far too much junk food in Frankenfood diets, watching a variety of screens that are designed to hypnotize you and draw you into a trance-like state. The foods, the drugs, the stimulants, all these things that we're being pumped into our body, chemically enhanced flavorings and genetically modified food colorings, HEK21, 21293 possibly, is the ingredients that will kind of dissolve the mind a little bit into becoming a sponge for saturation of subliminal and suggestive messaging that comes to you in a vast variety of formats, not just entertainment, music, mainstream media, but social media. And now in a smart age, even things like billboards are containing smart technology that can emit frequencies. It is all about the frequencies, guys, and is your mind, is your or my mind even the mind of ourselves, or are they the minds of programmers we've not seen? So the first part of this little article that we are going to look at is a quote from Robert Bernays: "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in a democratic society." And those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, a shadow government, a deep state, hidden group of Kabbalist elites, which is the true ruling power of not only the country of the United States, but of the globe. And we are governed. Our minds are molded, our tastes are formed, and our ideas are suggested largely by men we have never heard of. Edward Bernays, not Robert Bernays. My apologies there. And another quote from a CBS former foreign correspondent. Politicians and the media have conspired to infantilize, to dumb down the American and global public. At heart, politicians don't believe that Americans can handle complex truth, and the news media, especially television news, basically agrees. And there is a reason it is called television programming. But the article starts off with saying that mind control is also known as brainwashing, which refers to a process in which a group or an individual systematically uses unethically manipulative methods to persuade others to conform to the wishes of the manipulators, and often to the detriment of the person being manipulated. The term has been applied to any tactic, psychological or otherwise, which can be seen as subverting an individual's sense of control over their own thinking, behavior, emotions, and decision making. Theories of brainwashing and mind control were originally developed to explain how totalitarian regimes appeared to succeed in systematically indoctrinating prisoners of war through propaganda and torture techniques. Mind control is done in several ways, such as via propaganda through the controlled media, be it mainstream or in this day and age social, and also trauma-based mind control and frequencies. Ladies and gentlemen, this shit is all attacking us right now. They have created an environment in which is a little bit stressful, uncertain, depressing. It is inducing anxiety, all sorts of thoughts for people who are sort of affected and maybe non-essential and struggling to pay bills, wondering where the next dollar's coming from, and wondering if they're ever going to get a job again, if or not they conform to the requirements being mandated by the corporate dictators that are pulling the streams of politicians. It's not about a virus. It's not about a vaccine. It's about control. Who's willing to obey and who is willing to not. COVID is a big scope screen, and it is a tool of division that will have people acting according to the required reaction. This is all part of the mind control and what we are going to be discussing a little bit this evening, but it is all based on, as we said, they created a traumatic environment for us, and the trauma is only going to get larger and deeper and more traumatic as it progresses. Who knows what is heading our way in the all-apocalyptic, all-out end of days deep state agenda as they lead us towards the one world order. And we are saturated by a dome and constant network of frequencies. It's probably impossible for any one individual in the modernized Western world to walk up and down the street without being interfered with some frequency and other, be it 5G, 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, mobile data. It's all around us, and we have so much technology now in our household that relies on frequencies and data in wireless connections, and we get caught up in the midst of it. But they do use frequencies to affect the brain waves utilized at places like HAARP, the High Active Aurora Research Project. And mind control is not limited to those. For example, state-controlled education is another form of thought control, which conforms the minds of children into a mold. They are told what to believe about the past and the present, which ultimately affects their future. Remember, I was going to say Deep Purple. It wasn't Deep Purple, it was Pink Floyd. We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. Teacher, leave them kids alone. I'm sure you are all too familiar with that Pink Floyd classic, The Wall. But most minds, however, the article continues to say, are set on input and regurgitation. Share and agree, copy and paste is the modern form of input and regurgitation. Those things, medical mind control, is something we have spoken also at great length at Ship Video Productions, previously at TSP TV, and briefly here at Reality Decoding. Again, some of you regular offenders should be all too familiar and a little bit more clued up than you should be on such tactics and methods being used against us to model and shape our minds into a desired thought pattern, creating hive minds and cloned, copied and pasted opinions. But these minds, as we said, are set on input and regurgitation, and these methods using against us, and rather than using our own minds, as I said, this is what they're trying to do, create hive minds and implantation in a copy and pasted share and agree opinion. And that is what the one world wants, is a society of sharing and agreeing opinionated conformists. They do not want free thinkers. They don't want people who are going to question the status quo. But they are our own minds are being manipulated to stop us from using our own minds to form independent thoughts and opinions of our own. And the common sense of the majority believes that what they are told to believe, and this is very much sort of the case with the pandemic. Many people, depending on what side of the coin your stance is, whether you're pro or against COVID, many of the things that we are regurgitating are designed to tell us what to think and how to behave. But even further, they believe that those who tell them what to believe know the truth, even though they themselves have received all of the knowledge and ideas from outside sources. So where does independent thought even come into the equation? Because most of us have been influenced by outside sources, and God knows how much we've been influenced by frequency. But this is where being too trusting can get to be a danger to us. It's common sense that if you wanted to control the thoughts and minds of an entire people, you would use education, media, and even politics and religion. And the hardest part to accept, that those you call your leaders would do such a thing. And it takes a long journey of new understanding and alternative knowledge to truly grasp just how easy it has been for them to control and manipulate the masses. And a little bit what I'm trying to do with these presentations and share information is to give you guys new understanding and alternative knowledge to the mainstream to make up your own minds. Make of it what you will. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm just providing you information that you can then decide what to believe for yourself based on the information available to you. And this information is not going to be presented to you, of course, on mainstream or most social media sites that will encourage you to share and agree. And by no means am I doing this for likes. I'm doing this to try and share the information. It means much, much more to me when I get comments where people say, my goodness, I did not know that. Thanks for sharing this information. I'll be sure to let others know. You don't have to share my videos, but the information that I'm sharing with you guys, if you don't share it further, it ends with you guys. And what is the point of a network of information sharers if the network breaks down at the first chain of link? But it is common sense that if you wanted to, we've already read sorry back to the bottom, so it has been very, very easy to control the masses and minds of society throughout the world for decades, and possibly maybe even centuries. A little graphic there of Washington pumping out the propaganda directly into the mind of a caricature to represent the citizens, but programming the masses to achieve world government. It is necessary to remove from the minds of men their individualism, loyalty to family tradition, natural patriotism, and religious dogma. We have swallowed all manner of poisonous certainties fed to us by our parents, our Sunday school and day school teachers, our politicians, our priests, the representation and eventual eradication of the concept of right and wrong, which has been the basis of child training, the substitution of intelligent and rational thinking for faith in the certainties of old people. These are the belated objectives for charting the changes in human behavior. Brooke Chisholm, in 1959, the Humanist of the Year and former head of, unfortunately, the World Health Organization, quoted in the February 1946 issue of Psychiatry, the trauma-based mind control. And the current mind control technology grew out of experiments that the Nazis started during and before World War II. Apologies, my eyes are getting very, very squinted and the words are almost completely blurred for me. I might take a little pause and break shortly to readjust my eyesight before continuing much further, but we will read this little bit. So obviously, guys, you should know about Operation Paperclip, something we've spoken about, and some of you are clued up on Operation Paperclip. The Allies cherry-picked the best Nazi socialist, National Socialist scientists, brought them to their respective nations, nationalized them, and then put them to good work. In the United States, hey guys, you're no longer Nazis, you're now NASA. But these Nazis started looking into the mind control, what was become modern mind control technology pre-World War II, and it intensified during the time of Nazi concentration camps, when an unlimited supply of children and adults were available for experimentation, as well as slave labor for the industrialists that were funding both the Allies and the Axis of evil. But we've heard about the inhumane medical experiments performed on these prisoners, but no word was ever mentioned by the media of the mind control experiments. The first phase of mind control grew out of old occult techniques, which required the victim to be exposed to massive psychological and physical trauma, usually beginning in infancy, in order to chase the psyche to shatter into 1,000 auto personalities, which can be separately programmed and can be surfaced by programmers or handlers using special code sound words or actions known as triggers. And again, something I've mentioned frequently and many times in previous streams is that in recent times the word triggered has become sort of a pop cultural phrase or slur for somebody who gets upset about things. And just recently chatting to a friend down by the lakeside, we're talking about how some people seem to have been triggered and programmed to get up and dance when they hear certain music. But the second phase of mind control development was refined at an underground base below Fort Hero on Montauk, Long Island. And we've spoken also about the Montauk Project and Camp Hero and its relation to providing the fictional Stranger Things with the majority of their plot lines. But Dr. Joseph Mengele of Auschwitz fame was the principal developer of the trauma-based Montauk Project and the CIA's MK Ultra mind control programs. Mengele and approximately 5,000 other high-ranking National Socialists were were secretly moved to the US and South America after WW2 in Paperclip, as we mentioned. The National Socialists continued their work in developing mind control in the secret underground military bases, and these underground military facilities gradually became home to thousands upon thousands of kidnapped American children snatched off the streets, and approximately 1 million a year, allegedly, according to the article. But these orphans were then placed into iron bar cages stacked from floor to ceiling as part of their training, and certain selected children would become future mind-controlled slaves who would be used for thousands of different jobs, anywhere from sexual slavery to assassinations. The first studies of behavioral science was established in England in 1882, and Tavistock, guys, the good old Tavistock Institute of Human Relations was set up in London in 1921, 100 years ago, to the year pretty much, and to study the breaking point of humans. And Tavistock we have spoken about quite a lot. We've got at least 3 streams and at least 10 hours of footage for your informative and alternative educational purposes to formulate your own opinions, if or not the Tavistock Institute has programmed how you have lived your life and what you have thought and how you behave. But it was formed in 1921, and it was designed to study the breaking point of humans, and in particular some of those poor troops that were sent to fight in the trenches during World War I. And Kurt Lewin, a German psychologist, became the director of the Tavistock Institute in 1932, about the same time that the National Socialists were increasing in popularity in Germany and also increasing their research in neuropsychology and parapsychology. The multi-generational occultism and an exchange of ideas between England and Germany, who would be enemies only a few years later, and most notably in the field of eugenics. And after World War II, the US brought many of the top German National Socialist and Italian fascist scientists and spies to the United States via South America and the Vatican under the code name Project Paperclip, and they were then given positions within the alphabet agencies, the CIA, that was the Tavistockian suggestion to replace the OSS, which was the Operation of Secret Services, I believe. And as I said, this is something that should be very, very common to you. So at that point, I am going to take a little break, rest my eyes, and hopefully they will refocus as we continue. But until then, guys, I will give you a couple of videos and clips to suggest and show you some other actual mind control and thought-provoking, emotion-provoking technology that does exist. So stay tuned, guys, as we will continue with this article after you've checked out these couple of videos.
And seeing and recording that activity and put it into the sensory cortex of the second animal, and that animal acquires the knowledge. From the human drone technology standpoint, you can attach the human brain to another human brain, you can direct motor activity, or you can send communication and information. Dr. Ventnor's work is, my view, the equivalent of the development of nuclear weapons when you realize that he created life in a cell. He programmed yeast cells to produce anything he wanted. These can be inserted into you through the hypospray needles. You put in a specific gene slicing, you program what you like, you put it in the cell, and it can reproduce and make as much as you like. It sends a signal and tells which portion of the DNA should unwrap, unfold, and produce a product. Related to this is an idea called DREADS. These are designer receptors that can be remotely controlled. You can create a cell, you can put it somewhere in the body, and you can remotely activate it. So you have the capacity to create any product, as long as you know the DNA sequence. You can insert it into a living system, and you can remotely control it. That may affect the way you think, the way you act. So once you know that the technology is there to edit, splice, and program a cell, and the technology currently exists to administer it to somebody and have it go park anywhere you program it to go park, proliferate, and do its function, you can have things activated in other people's brains. Just people have figured out how to hide imagery in the DNA of bacteria. You can have the information reproduced in a string form as a form of a protein. The new way to hide information is going to be in DNA. This is the first experiment showing what imagery you can hide in bacteria. This is the latest. It's a GIF file. Well, this is what the Chinese are doing with DNA. Merging DNA systems with quantum computing will be really quite an amazing and both lethal threat. The next thing I wanted to mention to you is memory. Can we erase memory? Can we modify memory? Can we change memory? The short answer is yes.
Maeda and his colleagues have developed the headsets and remote control as part of a sophisticated wearable computer. They call their device a galvanic vestibular stimulation interface. It works with electrical or galvanic impulses that are transmitted wirelessly to the ear.
I'll put the electrodes on. We have to avoid the hair because hair is an insulator.
Electrical impulses travel from the remote control to a circuit board in this pouch, and by wire up to the ears, where the electrical impulses convey messages to the delicate nerves in the vestibular system.
We'll start testing now. Please stand with your feet together. Now I'll remote control your balance from left to right.
The vestibular system in our ears is what gives us a sense of balance, direction, and acceleration. By sending mixed messages to the vestibular system, the remote control can literally put you off balance, sending you to the right, the left, or straight ahead as you attempt to regain balance.
How do you feel?
It feels like being pulled.
Do you feel tingling in your skin?
No, I don't.
Good. That means this is working the way it should be.
Now you might be wondering why anyone would want to wear it. Well, Maeda and his team see powerful entertainment value in the device. It can certainly take virtual reality up a notch or two.
This is a car racing simulation system, which makes it possible to experience a sense of gravity from side to side. So every time the car turns a corner on the screen, your body will feel like it's being pulled.
In this case, the system is working on the inner ear's sense of acceleration.
So it could be used for things like entertainment systems?
Yes, not only for huge devices at theme parks, but in smaller devices like video games at home.
The team also envisions helpful uses in daily life. Let's say you're walking to a specific destination but don't have directions. Well, by connecting you with a remote computer program, this system could get you there. Think of it as OnStar for pedestrians.
For example, hook up the cell phone's GPS system to our galvanic vestibular system interface for people who are not good at reading maps. This will help them get to places without having to read a map.
It could act like eyes in the back of your head, using collision avoidance sensors to help you avoid cars and other threats from behind. Unlike OnStar, which uses verbal feedback, or text messaging, which uses words, this provides immediate physical feedback. Maeda says that's a huge advantage.
In this information age, it's just too much information to handle when you're using these computers. Even when you're walking outside, you have to pay attention to cars and other dangers. Controlling computers on top of these other challenges is too much information to handle. That's why it's helpful for people to have a robot, which supports us by doing certain things like paying attention to cars.
So the next time you see someone with earphones on their head behaving oddly, then take a look around. Somebody else might have a joystick.
Now, I convince you.
Delgado is fascinated by Swiss research on electrodes implanted in the brains of living cats.
When they stimulated the brain with electricity, the cat's paw moved, like so. It is showing we can change the electrical workings in a living brain. And I think, no, I believe, we can fix people.
So it's true, you want to stick wires in a human brain?
I offer a choice. Lobotomy, chop up the brains with a knife, or a few wires in the brain. No permanent damage. You control how strong is the effect. Turn it off, the effect is gone. Which would you choose?
This guy is controlling his friend like a video game character.
This thing is so cool, and I so want to try it.
I would put it on all of my children and see if I could get them to do chores.
Hey, it's bedtime.
We went to meet Alan to find out how he made a sci-fi superpower into an awesome reality.
I made it out of a remote control toy car, basically, and now I can remotely control people who agree to wear this thing.
Walk with me. Wow.
Yes!
That's so bizarre.
The reactions were actually very fearful. People didn't like the idea of messing with someone's brain, so a lot of people were sort of like icked out by the whole thing. They thought it was kind of scary, which I think is really funny.
What are you doing? It's controlling him.
So how can you take over someone else's mind?
Alan is controlling his friends using their vestibular system that's responsible for balance.
Small canals in your inner ear move fluid around, and as that fluid sloshes back and forth, it excites hairs, which send electrical signals into the brain. Alan's helmet is able to override those signals.
And today I'm going to talk about something that most all of us are using right now. And I don't mean your phones. I'm going to talk about your ears. So in 1790, Alessandro Volta, he had just invented the battery. And he put the electrodes in his ears and then promptly passed out. And right before he passed out, he said he felt the sensations of spinning. And most likely that sensation was from vestibular stimulation, which is what I'm going to talk about over the next several minutes. Right before I get into it, let's take a moment to think about balance. Balance is something most of us take for granted. Right? Most of us can easily walk across a gravel path. We can transition from walking on a sidewalk onto grass, back onto the sidewalk. And we don't really have to think about it. People don't normally stumble doing those things. Now, maintaining balance requires that the brain receive information from three main sources. You need information from your visual system, so data coming in from the eyes. You need information from your proprioceptive system, which is your muscles and your joints. And as an example of proprioception, some of you want to follow along, or all of you, if you hold out your fingers just like that in front of your face, close your eyes, and touch the tip of your nose with your finger and eyes closed. And most everybody can do that with some amount of success, right? And that's because of your sense of proprioception, this inner sense that we have. So the third thing the brain needs is information from your vestibular system, or your inner ear. So what exactly is going on inside your ear? Turns out a whole lot. The sensory information about motion, about equilibrium, about spatial orientation, all of this information goes from your vestibular system to your brain. And in each ear, you have what constitutes the vestibular system, which is what I just highlighted with that rectangle. It's 3 semicircular canals that are at right angles to one another, and they take care of detecting rotational movement. And then you have the utricle and the saccule. Those take care of detecting gravity as well as linear movement. It's kind of like the gyroscope and the accelerometer working in your phone. It's the same kind of system, and it's a pretty amazing system. So the semicircular canals are filled with a fluid called the endolymph. And at the base of each canal is a cupula and some hair bundles inside it. So if you look on the right side of the image, when the person rotates, the fluid gets sloshed around. And when the fluid moves, the hair moves. And then the hair sends a signal to the brain telling what's happening, right? And then there's 3 semicircular canals. There's essentially the anterior canal, which detects motion like this, like head nodding. There's posterior canal, which detects motion like a head tilt towards your shoulders. And then there's the lateral canal that detects motion like a swivel, your head going side to side. The utricle and the saccule, they work slightly differently. They have tiny calcium carbonate crystals, kind of like tiny bones, that are floating on top of the gel membrane, inside of which there's again hair bundles. And so when you look at the person bending over to pick up a box, the bones get pulled down because of gravity. And they pull the gel membrane along, and then the hair gets pulled along. And again, the hair sends a signal to the brain saying, all right, this is what's happening. So the utricle largely sits horizontally in your head. And that's how it detects movement in this plane. Things like moving forward, side to side. The saccule sits vertically in your head. And so it detects movement in the vertical plane. Things like sitting down or standing up. When all of this works, people can do some really amazing things with balance, right? But what happens when things don't work right? What happens if the signals that are going to the brain just don't line up? Well, that's when you get motion sickness, right? So motion sickness essentially is a mismatch of signals that are sent to the brain from your eyes and your ears. And I imagine a lot of people have experienced this here. When you're reading a book in a moving car, your ears are telling the brain, I'm moving. But your eyes are telling the brain, nope, we're not moving. Because you're essentially static relative to the car seat, the floor beneath your feet. And so it's this disagreement between those two signals that triggers nausea and vomiting, right? The same thing happens in virtual reality. Like VR, as it exists right now, essentially depends on visual information. And so the possibilities of what we can see in VR, practically endless. However, what we can feel in VR is very limited, right? Most of the time, you just feel like you're standing in your living room or sitting on your couch, even though you may be flying or swimming or doing all sorts of things in VR. Now, what if we could make you feel this motion? What if we could fix motion sickness? That's exactly what we did when we built a vestibular stimulation device. It basically is a small wearable that can automatically sense when to provide you the right type of feedback when you're in VR. The way it works is that we place electrodes behind each ear, and then we hook up the device to a small battery, and then we stimulate the nerves that I talked about earlier, the nerves that go from your inner ear to your brain. We stimulate them with a small amount of current, something like maybe 1 milliamp. So electrically stimulating the vestibular system is called galvanic vestibular stimulation, or GVS. We tested our device, we tested GVS in a VR roller coaster experience. You can imagine what a VR roller coaster might feel like. And in this case, it went from a vomit fest to something that people actually found thrilling and exciting. People are like, I want this in my home, I want to do it all the time. And they said that they could feel every turn of the roller coaster in their body, something that they'd expect to feel on a real roller coaster. Another thing we can do in VR, which is what I started to talk about, is remote control people. Basically, how can we steer people using GVS? And if you watch in the video, the person actually intends to walk straight, but they end up turning quite smoothly. And that happens, well, there's a prerequisite for it, that you need to be looking down when you do apply GVS. So if they had been looking up and we had applied GVS, they would have staggered. And that almost feels like somebody's pushing you. That doesn't feel comfortable. But this is fairly comfortable. You just turn towards the anodal direction quite smoothly. So we use this idea in building a two-person VR game, kind of like an Escape the Room VR game, where there's one person who's in VR, and they're in a dark room. They can't see anything, but they can hear things around them. And then the other person is using a tablet or a PC. And their task is to use GVS to steer the person in VR around obstacles, help them escape the room, right? So it's a collaborative game. So this is all well and good. It's all fun and it's pretty interesting. But what else can GVS do, right? Volta didn't stick electrodes in his ears just for the sake of doing so. What he wanted to do was see how stimulating the ear could be done electrically. He wanted to see how it would impact hearing. Similarly, other researchers in the 1800s, they also tried using vestibular stimulation to see if it would fix deafness or if it would cure other diseases of the ear. Now, doctors are starting to use vestibular stimulation for things like therapy, rehab, even for training, athletic training enhancement. Scientists are starting to use GVS, trying to see how really low levels of stimulation can actually impact higher order brain function. Things like tactile sensation, face recognition, and even memory. Right, so as a last thought, we all know that machines are getting smarter by the day, right? And what if we could evolve alongside the machines? Now, brain hacking has been a futuristic fascination for decades, but we all understand that actually fully understanding the brain is going to take many, many years of work. But with GVS, we can actually get started right now by building devices that can impact small parts of the brain, hack those little areas, just like the one we created.
Welcome back to the article and a quotation from the book Psychic Dictatorship in the USA from Alex Constantine reads, "The science of mind control has achieved the scale of a criminal subculture and left a wide path of chaos and confusion that crosses all international, and I'm going to add ethical, boundaries. The carnage takes place under the noses of the public and is obscured by cover stories and dead witnesses. And the incredible naivety of most news reporters, although I would sort of suggest that the news reporters aren't naive. They are on the payroll and part of the program for mind control." But moving along, Project MK Ultra, another subject we have spoken a lot about, and actually do have a 4.5-hour upload on TSP TV, all about MK Ultra and mind control. You should check out if you haven't already. But MK Ultra came into existence on April 13th, 1953, and it started out with 149 sub-projects that were listed under the umbrella of MK Ultra, and the Operation Spellbinder was set up to create sleeper assassins who could be activated upon receiving a keyword or phrase. Project Monarch could be the best described as a form of structured disassociation and occulted interrogation, integration, in order to compartmentalize the mind into multiple personalities with a systematic framework. MPD in brackets, multiple personality disorder, and DID, dissociative identity disorder. And the Monarch project has been verified and corroborated by numerous survivors like Kathy O'Brien, I mentioned her in that brainwashed MK Ultra upload on TSPT, and a few other individuals like Bryce Taylor, Kate Sullivan, Paul Bonanucci, and during the process of mind control, a satanic ritual, usually including Kabbalistic mysticism, is performed with the purpose of attaching a particular demon or group of demons to the corresponding altars. Many of the victims are bloodliners programmed to fulfill the destiny as the chosen ones, and some come from orphanages and foster care homes, and in the deepest and darkest of altars, in these people are purported to be dominant until the Antichrist is revealed. An altar can be accessed by anyone who happens to know the codes or triggers, and these triggers, which include an altered trance state in a programmed victim, can be anything including telephone tones, nursery rhymes, dialogues from certain movies, hand signals. MK Ultra is said to stand for manufacturing killers utilizing lethal tradecraft requiring assassinations. I'm not sure if it does or not, but that does make for interesting thought nonetheless. But in order to keep MK Ultra from being easily detected, the CIA segmented its sub-projects into specialized fields of research and developments at universities, prisons, private labs, and hospitals. Some of the major institutions involved in Monarch program experimentation were and are the Duke University of Rochester, MIT, Georgetown University Hospital, St. Elizabeth's Hospital, General Electric, Bell Laboratories, UCLA, Princeton, Cornell, MIT, etc., yada yada, whoop-de-woo, array, tay. But on August the 3rd of 1977, the 95th US Congress opened hearings into the report and abuses concerning the CIA's top secret mind control research program named MK Ultra. And on February the 8th of 1988, a top-level MK Ultra victim, Kathy O'Brien, was covertly rescued from her mind control enslavement by intelligence insider Mark Phillips, and their 7-year pursuit of justice was stopped for reasons of national security. We don't want the nation knowing about such things, and there's a link to Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien. Is a fascinating read. Is the first documented autobiography of a victim of governmental mind control. Also here in Canada, over in Montreal, they also the CIA outsourced some contractors to carry out their experiments on behalf of them, and again sort of outside of the borders of the United States, certain jurisdiction will apply. But Kathy O'Brien is one of the only vocal and recovered survivors of the CIA's MK Ultra Project Monarch, and if or not, she was sort of a deep state controlled opposition plant to normalize this, and why there's only one of them to sort of provide a certain narrative that may or may not be misdirection. That is up to you to decide. But Kathy O'Brien does have an awful lot of interesting stuff to say on MK Ultra and mind control in in particular. But MK Ultra and Project Monarch operation and tracing her path from child pornography and the recruitment into the program to serving as a top-level intelligence agent and White House sex slave, as was the allegations and suggestions that also Marilyn Monroe, another subject we covered at TSP TV, was also under the influence of MK Ultra and was in fact a sort of central intelligence covert secret agent that infiltrated particularly notably the Kennedy family. But they served as top-level intelligence agencies and a White House sex slave. And again, Marilyn Monroe was possibly a sex slave for the Kennedy brothers. But Transformation of America is a definitive eyewitness account of government corruption, and it implicates some of the most prominent figures in U.S. politics, and it is perfectly possible for a man to be out of prison and yet not free, to be under no physical constraint and yet to be a psychological captive, compelled to think, feel and act as the representatives of the national state or some of the private interest within the nation wants him to think, feel and act. And that can be applicable to each and every one of us. The nature of psychological compulsion is such that those who act under constraint remained under the impression that they are acting on their own free initiative. The victim of mind manipulation does not know that he is or she is a victim, and to him the walls of his prison are invisible and he believes himself to be free. It's not a lie if you believe it. George Costanza, of course, a huge influence to Ship Video Productions. But that is not the fact is that he is not free is apparent only to other people, and his servitude is strictly objective, and that is from Brave New World Revisited, Aldous, written by Aldous Huxley in 1958. But the lone gunmen that we hear about in assassinations and school shootings, etc., are mind-controlled individuals who have programmed to carry out these missions. Ted Bundy, the son of Sam, serial killer David Berkowitz, Timothy McVeigh, the Columbine shooters, Chapman, Saran Sharan, tens of thousands of young teenage boys were kidnapped and forced into mind control trading, as was Ted Krasinski, the Unabomber, who's a Harvard University, then was subjected to MK Ultra, and his manifesto, the Unabomber's manifesto, is a particular interesting read into the dangers of the technological revolution. Check that out. But many of these young boys were kidnapped and forced into mind control training programs, as were the people aforementioned. But the Montauk project, starting around 1976 rather, Al Bilek, under mind control, was involved in many areas of the secret Montauk project. After slowly recovering his memories in the 80s, he came to realize there were at least 250,000 mind-controlled Montauk boys, as they referred to, and produced at 25 different facilities similar to the underground base at Montauk, and some would become sleepers later on, triggered to engage in some sort of destructive conduct. Others were woven into the fabric of mainstream American life as journalists, radio and TV personalities, pop stars, movie stars, TV celebrities, such forth, as well as businessmen, lawyers, medical professionals, judges, prosecutors, law enforcement and military men, people of influence. If you can control the minds of those that influence the mind of the masses, your job's half done. But there are various levels of programming, and it is where it gets interesting. Alpha is regarded as the general or regular programming within the base control personality, and it is characterized by extremely pronounced memory retention, increased physical strength, and visual accuracy. Alpha program is accomplished through deliberately subdividing the victim's personality, which in essence creates left brain right brain division and allowing for a programmed union of left and the right through neuron pathway simulation. Beta, which is something that is being used on the masses and being introduced and influenced through social media and such things, movie posters and contemporary TV shows. This is what is going on. This is why you will see an awful lot of purple on mainstream and social media at the moment. Open your eyes and see the purple. We've spoken about purple and its significance also at TSP TV, and what they are doing now is beta programming, and this explains the rise of the beta male, and this is referred to as sexual program, although you don't necessarily have to use beta program to make sex slaves. You can just use beta program to make slaves in general that will do anything you want them to do. But delta program is known as the killer program, and it is optimal adrenal output and controlled aggression is evident. Devoid of fear, very systematic in carrying out their assignments, self-destruct or suicide instructions are layered into this level of programming. Theta programming, considered psychic programming, bloodliners were determined to exhibit a greater propensity for having telepathic abilities than non-bloodliners. Due to the limitations, various forms of electronic mind control systems were developed, brain implants and directed energy lasers using microwave and or electromagnetics. Think why we have 5G and so many devices, technological devices in our household that all rely on unseen wireless and frequency connections. But Omega programming is another thing I believe is possibly being used for people that have been segregated under social isolation and self-quarantine recommendations. It might be why, you know, we've seen an increase in suicides during the COVIDian era. But Omega program is a self-destruct form of programming, also known as code green suicide or self-mutilation, and this is generally activated when the victim begins therapy or interrogation and too much memory is being recovered. Gamma programming is another form of system protection through deception programming, which elicits misinformation and misdirection. This level is entwined with demonology, and tends to regenerate itself at a later time if inappropriately deactivated. But this initial process begins with creating disassociation with the subject. Again, this is all what we've been subjected to the last 12 months, disassociated what was considered normal to us and introduced with a very, very uncertain, disruptive, depressing new normal with an awful lot of weird and bizarre, tyrannical, draconian requirements and mandates and bills being enforced. But this usually begins at a very, very early age. But this is formally referred to as a multiple personality disorder, and it is presently recognized as a dissociative identity disorder and is the basis for Monarch programs. So again, guys, they've created a very disruptive environment where we don't really know what is going on. Is society is being deconstructed, and we are being disassociated with the past, that are creating the perfect conditions, and also creating the prime candidates for mind control by, you know, socially distancing people and segregating them and not allowing them to go to work, to school, or interact or mingle with friends and family. But the basis for Monarch Prime, as we just said, is I got sidetracked then. So that is the basis for Monarch Programmer, and further conditioning is enhanced through hypnotism, double-blind coercion, and pleasure pain reversals, food, water, and sleep deprivation, along with various drugs that alter certain cerebral functions in a sort of form of hypnotism. Is your social media news feeds, be it Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, or whatever it is. These are all designed to sort of put you in a sort of hypnotic trance-like state, and then you know, the purpose of the social media is to deliver you sort of advertising programming, but you will also be susceptible to an awful lot of propaganda, and determining on what information you give your artificially intelligent handler that resides within your smart technology, it will then decide how and what to program you with. So moving on, the next stage is embedded and compresses detailed commands or messages within the specified order. And again, last year I told you about how disturbed I was by the copy and paste the bunny mimetic that many, in fact millions and millions of people responded to without a question and copied and pasted the bunny. These are triggers and commands, and it was around 6 months into the scam pandemic that started to circulate, and I really do truly believe that the establishment that are carrying out this, and the people that are trying to brainwash and manipulate the minds of the masses, were using that as a experiment to see how many people had been subjected to brainwashing. And again, your brainwashing is tailor-made for you to believe what they want you to believe, and it doesn't matter if you've been brainwashed to believe you should wear a mask or shouldn't wear a mask. You've been brainwashed to command upon response, and many people, maskers and non-maskers, responded to the call of action, the trigger, to copy and paste the bunny. And of course, the bunny is a symbol, along with the monarch butterfly, that is strongly associated with MK Ultra and mind control projects. And also down the rabbit hole is where the term from Alice in the Wonderland does get fixed to those individuals like myself who do enjoy to try and research some of this alternative knowledge for you. But this is achieved through the use of, sorry, did I get ahead of myself? So various drugs that can alter certain cerebral functions, and the next stage is to embed and compass detailed commands or messages within the specified alter. We're all being programmed into altered. We're all trying to be made into human drones, clones, hive minds, and this is achieved through high-tech headsets. And almost the majority of people that do use their cellular and smart technology for and entertainment purposes are doing so through headphones, and with these high-tech headsets, and in conjunction with computer-driven generators, i.e. algorithms and artificial intelligence, that emit inaudible sound waves or harmonica that affect the RNA covering of neuron pathways to the subconsciousness and unconscious mind. A high voltage electric shock is used for memory dissolution, and programming is updated periodically and reinforced through visual, auditory, and written mediums. And again, copy and paste, share and agree are written mediums, and these are things that you regularly and periodically are subjected to on your news feeds. This is a form of modern mind control. This is MK Ultra. This is Monarch in plain sight on your news feeds, turning us all into hive mind cloned, copy and paste opinion aided drones. But some of the first programming themes included The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland, as we've mentioned, and both heavily saturated with occultist symbolism. Many of the recent Disney movies and cartoons are used in a twofold manner, desensitizing the majority of the population while using subliminals and neuro-linguistic programming, deliberately constructing specific triggers and keys for the base programming of highly impressionable Monarch children. And music also plays an instrumental role in programming through combinations of variable tones, rhythms, and words. So there is a video there that unfortunately, surprise, surprise, is unavailable for you to watch. So we can't do that. The next stage is HAARP, but let's take a little break and show you a couple more relevant videos before we continue reading, and it will give my eyes a little bit of a chance to rest. So see you shortly.
Streets of New York to the laid-back tranquility of California. Americans are tuning out and tuning in. It's the latest fad, tiny stereo cassette players with featherweight headphones. It's caught on all over America, but nowhere as it has in New York, where more and more people are discovering that about the only space they've got is between their ears. In a manner of speaking, of course.
You know, listening to Beethoven and walking in Manhattan, you know, walking on the streets is, it's pretty nice. As opposed to hearing the sirens that are going by and the jackhammers. Yeah. It just puts you in your own world all by yourself. It's like carrying your stereo with you, you know, on your head, and it's like...
Whether they wear pinstripes or no stripes, they're discovering that, at least musically speaking, you can take it with you. About 750,000 people nationwide are doing just that.
Everybody's buying the machines. Anyone from a wealthy executive likes to spend his weekends out in a sailboat listening to Beethoven, to the street kid listening to new wave music down in the subways.
Of noise and confusion down here, and it just centers me. And, you know, I've just got to go about 5 stops, but it feels good.
Is it the me generation gone wild, the height of antisocial behavior, electronic snubbery?
The rest of the world tunes out to me sometimes, so I might as well do it to them.
Some still prefer last year's model, the radio that's about as big as the Empire State Building and as loud as World War II. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. What do you think of the people who wear the headsets, you know, so that it doesn't make a lot of noise and they only...
What do I think? I don't know. I can say it's a different strokes. I can't hear you. Can you speak up just a little bit? I say it's different strokes for different folks.
Different strokes indeed. In the midst of this serenade, there developed one of those mellow happenings that exemplify the sophistication for which New York is so admired. You bother a lot of people with that?
No.
Bother me? Bothers the hell out of me. I think you're invading my life space with that damn thing.
Yeah,
you are, really. Not only mine, but everybody else around here. I ask everybody here, isn't this ridiculous?
It's nice to know that music can bring serenity to people, that music hath charms to soothe the savage breast. It's really quite comforting.
I can't take it anymore. I've had it up to here. I can't take it anymore.
Life is but a dream.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mark Goldberg, CBS News.
My seizures occur every 14 days or so. I don't actually know what the seizure itself feels like since I'm unconscious, but prior to having a seizure, it was almost like a hallucination in which I heard a man's voice saying, "I'm gonna come get you."
Livia Amita suffers from epilepsy, an electrical disorder in the brain that causes seizures and has afflicted people from Roman Emperor Caligula all the way to Danny Glover. Livia, however, is about to fight electricity with electricity as her neurosurgeon implants 14 electrodes deep into her brain in order to investigate the part where the seizures originate.
All right, let's drive to the first site.
Her brain surgeon is Stanford neuroscientist Casey Halpern.
Like, in terms of like the overall complexity of the brain, how much does neuroscience know? Do you have like an estimate the way like astronomers are like, oh yeah, there's like 98% of the galaxy that we just don't know?
I think it's a reasonable analogy. There's so much we don't know, but what we do know, we know quite well. You do have to think about brain function as being due to where one part of the brain is connected to the other.
It's all a big circuit.
It's all a big circuit.
And Livia's brain is now even more of a circuit, which allows Dr. Halpern's team to map the brain's functions by trying out the different connections.
What we're trying to do now primarily is to figure out brain function by inactivating a specific area of the brain by passing electricity through it.
By passing an electrical current between two of the electrodes, the doctors can hopefully figure out what the part in between does, or doesn't.
All right, RPOA 1, 2 at 3.
Did you feel anything unusual with that one?
I feel like I was lifted a little bit.
5 and 6.
When we did that one, it made me feel a little bit nervous.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I want you to stare right at the dot. Tell me if anything changes, okay?
Uh-huh.
What's happening?
A rainbow dot showed up in the upper left-hand corner.
Great. Let's go RPOI 6, 7.
Now the sparkles were more just right to the left of the dot.
Can you count down from 10? Go.
10, 9. Wait, 7, 6, 5, 4.
What happened? Were you trying to talk?
Uh-huh. At least I think I was still trying to go down the numbers.
So you knew what you wanted to say,
Uh-huh.
but you just couldn't do it.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Cyborg.
In order to make the brain work better, first you have to look under the hood and learn how the brain works in the first place. Unfortunately, human beings are a little squeamish historically when it comes to cracking open your cranial cavity. So it's been left to neuroscientists to do their brain research on subjects who are a little more willing. They're less willing than unable to get away. Due to some similarities between their brains and humans, Dr. Halpern and his team have been using mice as their research subjects, trying to map out the neural networks responsible for different sorts of behavior.
We can inform larger leaps in science or translations to medical care, changing the way we treat patients and brain disorders, at least in the context of an area of interest of mine, which is in trying to control impulses.
This experiment's target impulse is binge eating.
We tried to provoke their binge by giving them a high-fat pellet. It tastes like butter.
I swear to God, I thought he was wearing like a tiny Burger King crown for a second.
Well, that is the pin on the top of the electrode that we connect the wires to, so that we can actually stimulate the area of the brain that we know can lead to attenuation of binge eating.
Just like plugging in a pair of speakers.
If a mouse or a human is anticipating a food reward, we know that right before that patient gets the food reward, the nucleus accumbens will light up. You can liken that to alcoholism, about to take a swig. You can liken that to meeting up with your drug dealer right before you pay the drug dealer. And so if we can target that activity, maybe we can alter that decision by blocking the impulse. Go ahead.
So I'm going to put it in.
And then remotely we can monitor the brainwaves and actually intervene in real time.
You're smelling it. Physically, what's the therapy? It's just a minor shock, or is it?
It is definitely not a shock, though I would understand why you would think that. It is a low-dose delivery of electrical stimulation.
He's still eating.
And the stimulation just got triggered.
Whoa, okay, yeah. So now he doesn't want to eat it.
The binge gets interrupted, so it'll stop binge eating. But it won't start behaving in a strange, adverse way. It doesn't make the mouse freeze or anything like that. It just seems to make the mouse a little less interested in binge eating.
Okay.
We have all these episodic conditions, impulses that drive behavior that can be dangerous. An impulse to binge eat or commit suicide or take advantage of a coworker sexually. These are impulses that we don't need. If we can actually control these problems, perhaps in the most severe of cases with surgery, we should be able to have a major impact on our society.
The brain,
This has 100 electrodes on it, and this is the part that tunnels out of the skull onto this connector, and then that's the side that allows us to connect to the neurons. It's really an amazing technology.
Can you explain the experiment to me?
The main focus of the lab is to understand basic sensory motor control and cognition, because if we're going to build systems that can restore that, we need to know what the target is. So in that spirit, we use a brain-computer interface system to do our basic science research in normal, healthy, intact monkeys.
Today's monkey is Earl, one of 6 non-human primates taking part in Dr. Batista's experiment.
How similar to human brains are rhesus monkey brains?
In terms of rudimentary sensory motor coordination, the type of stuff we need to understand, they've got what we've got.
That's Earl thinking? That's the neurons part?
Each small rectangle is a different neuron.
The electrode array in Earl's BCI has been wired to a group of neurons associated with the motor function of his right arm.
All right, everyone ready?
Earl's limbs have been gently restrained for the course of the experiment, so it's purely his thoughts moving the dot to its target.
How do you teach him not to go outside the lines?
Everything we use is positive reinforcement. So when he does the task correctly, he'll get a reward.
What is his reward? Is it just the clicky sound, or?
No, he's getting a liquid reward.
With a monkey, they have a lot of dexterity, but you're limited by their cognitive understanding of what we need them to do.
Right.
So we're never going to get a monkey to type out a text message. However, there's a lot that can be developed here that can facilitate how those devices perform in people.
While Earl can't use his BCI to text, back at Stanford, Dr. Jamie Henderson has been working with a subject who can not only text with his BCI, he can buy things on Amazon and leave a review, because he is a human being.
The entire purpose of the type of work that we're doing, the brain-computer interface, is to try to get intention out of the brain in order to use it to do something useful in the outside world.
I was a mechanical engineer. I spent most of my life building machinery. And it's always been a joke. I loved machinery so much that someday I would become one. So right now, I'm just typing with thoughts.
Before he could type with his mind, Dennis DeGray was a volunteer firefighter who became quadriplegic in 2007 after taking a nasty spill. Dr. Henderson implanted Dennis's BCI in 2016, and he's been experimenting with it ever since.
Dumb question of all dumb questions. What does it do?
It acts more or less as a hearing aid, listening to the very basic activities of my brain.
Are you thinking of moving the cursor itself, or are you thinking of using a mouse?
The visualization I found most comfortable for me was imagining a pool ball on a table with my hand on top of the pool ball. You roll away, it goes up, you pull back, it goes down, left, right accordingly.
Like a trackball.
Like the old tabletop video games.
Yeah. How do you think click? Does it?
I imagine snapping the fingers on my left hand.
Okay.
And so it's a nice abrupt movement, and the system can pick it up out of the rest of the background noise very clearly.
How do you separate what you're making the computer do from thinking about things you're hearing?
Thinking and typing would be equivalent to you riding your bicycle and thinking about what you're going to do at the office today.
Right.
I mean, the two don't really cancel each other out. They're just, not necessarily connected. What I'm doing now is beyond my wildest dreams from when I started. Sometimes I'm surprised, sometimes I'm overwhelmed, I'm frequently frustrated, but this is still research, and we are still learning. I believe every week we are making significant scientific breakthroughs.
While the medical world is blurring the lines between mind and machine in order to help restore their patients' abilities, military researchers are using similar technology for, unsurprisingly, military purposes.
This is my colleague, David. He's learning to move things with his mind.
Well, there you go.
David and I are visiting a company called Emotive. Emotiv wants to build technology that can channel our brainwaves into real-world commands.
I think we're on the cusp of a type of brain augmentation that will transform the way that we are as humans.
Tan Le is the founder of Emotiv, and the way she describes her company's goal is kind of science fiction-y.
We're applying science to make the Force come alive.
What Emotiv is doing is an extremely long way off from any of this stuff. But it's the beginning of something big, with the promise that one day our thoughts could control the objects around us.
Can I put it on your head? Okay, here we go. So we can see here what parts of your brain are most excited, are most active.
Emotiv's headset works by first learning a pattern of your brainwaves. Any pattern, you choose it.
Next, I want you to think of a thought that you're going to use to control this cube and push it away into the distance.
Is there a certain type of thought?
It could be any thought. Something that you think you can reimagine as accurately as possible later on command. Ready? And go.
The computer records his brain activity while he thinks that thought.
How'd that go? I guess we'll find out.
Now, when the computer sees the same brain pattern, it will move the cube.
Ooh, ooh. Hey! Okay, whatever you did that time was definitely, you could, are you?
It's weird.
Huh?
Well, the weirdest thing is to your suggestion, imagine yourself pushing the cube.
Uh-huh.
So like I imagined like a little me inside of this box pushing this cube, and now it's just...
So now we know what your brain looks like when you're imagining a little you pushing a cube.
Pushing this cube, that's...
The same process can be used to move basically anything.
So we're gonna give it a try.
Yeah.
I think you can do it. Okay. Well, there you go. Mini you is doing well.
Well, now I've lost control of it. Okay, there we go. Wow. Okay.
Think of Emotiv's technology like a simple yes, no, or on-off switch you can program, sort of like a universal remote control. Tan Le imagines a scenario where you could teach the headset to recognize several different brain patterns.
There are really no limits to the kinds of things that we can control. We can do anything from turning on your TV, to program your TV channels, Netflix, turning on and off the lights. And the most powerful thing is all you're using is your brain. You can do all of that simply by thinking.
Emotiv's goal is a world where headsets like this are everywhere, maybe embedded in a hat or a pair of glasses. But it's crucial to understand the limits of where this technology currently is. It's not the Force.
Some of the claims are overblown. It's different than the Force in that your brain thoughts by themselves are not causing a physical interaction with an object.
Virginia DeSaw is a cognitive science professor at UC San Diego. She's an expert in brain-computer interfaces. She says the technology is promising, but still in its infancy.
What you can't do right now is you can't say, I want light on and turn the light on. Think I want the TV on and turn the TV on. Think I want the dishwasher on and turn the dishwasher on.
She also says the technology is easily overhyped. Last year, Emotiv released a video of a paraplegic man driving a Formula One car using just his brain and an Emotiv headset. The video went viral, partly because of how impressive it made the technology seem, but DeSaw says we should be skeptical of what we're seeing here. You can't drive a car with your brain. And the driver in this video was probably only controlling certain elements.
Likely in the case of the car is taking care of maintaining speed, staying in the lane, avoiding hitting anything.
And Emotiv's headsets actually have a long way to go in just recording brain signals accurately. Think of how jerky the movement was when David tried to move that block. Specific brain signals can be really difficult to capture, and even with the latest EEG technology, we can't see them quite clearly.
So it's like looking at something through the shower glass where it's frosted glass, and it's blurring everything out.
Still, the capabilities are enough that companies are developing systems to allow so-called neurogamers to compete with their thoughts. And similar tech developed in other labs allows people to control artificial limbs with their minds. And maybe there's more ahead. People like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and the entrepreneur Brian Johnson are developing brain control technology. Facebook is talking about a system where we will type with our thoughts.
It sounds impossible, but it's closer than you may realize.
These are big names with big money. But remember, right now, what the technology actually does is still pretty basic.
There you go.
Still, the potential for harnessing the power of human thought is definitely exciting. And if the technology improves, one day it could be big.
I think that this moment, it's an extremely exciting frontier that can truly transform our understanding of ourselves and also change the way we perceive our own limits as humans as well.
So hopefully you have been finding some of these videos interesting and informative. I'm not going to say enjoyable because it's nothing enjoyable to be presented with the information and the facts that this technology does exist, can be used against each and every one of you, and is being used in each and every one of you. And again, another little reason I sort of forgot to mention earlier that we are sort of doing this presentation, thought control, which is some topics that is all too familiar to some of the regular offenders, as we did start out at the beginning of this presentation, is because recently I did have a stream that was removed. It did get me a copyright strike, did get me shut down for a week on YouTube, titled Total Population Control, when we did look at quite a lot of the sort of technology and methodology available to the establishment in terms of not just controlling our minds, but the environment and the atmosphere that in turn will create, have an effect on our moods, and that was removed, and for what YouTube considered contradicted the World Health Organization's stance on COVID-19. But we did talk a little bit about HAARP, and I do recall Baby Pamplin, our dear Becky P, saying every time she thought she understood HAARP, she was given reason to think and look differently at it after that presentation. But we are going to look briefly at HAARP here, not as much as we did in Total Population Control, which we sort of pretty much generated around HAARP and Gwen Towers. But there is a little picture of the ionosphere, depending on what your belief of the Earth is. If it's flat, is it circular? Is it hollow? Is it a terrarium? Are we living in a snow globe or a virtual reality? Who knows? But there is, as I said, the ionosphere around the Earth, and it says that the Earth is wrapped in a donut-shaped magnetic field, the ionosphere, and an electromagnetic wave conductor 62 miles above the Earth consists of a layer of electrically charged particles that act as a shield from solar winds. Natural waves are created which result from electrical activity in the atmosphere. The waves are called the Schumann resonance. We've spoken about this before on several occasions, with the strongest current registering at 7.8 hertz, and there are quasi-standing scalar ELF, extra low frequency waves, that naturally exist in the Earth's electromagnetic cavity. These Earth brain waves are identical to the frequency spectrum of our human brain. We've done what's going on the right side of the screen there. It seems to be getting a bit disorientated. Maybe that is our good old algorithmic friend trying to shut me up. But these Earth brain waves are, as I said, identical to the frequency spectrum of our human brain waves, and humans are made to resonate to the natural Schumann resonance frequency pulsation in order to evolve harmoniously. This is why grounding is very, very important, and why now the warmer weather has arrived here in southern Ontario, Canada. Being outside, certainly down by the lakeshore there, the water, the plants, the animals, the sand, the grass, everything is natural pretty much. Although I'm pretty sure, you know, we're not escaping that much electromagnetic and radio frequency wave pollution, but grounding is very important, not to mention getting as much natural vitamin D and dopamine from the sun. Stop getting your dopamine from sharing and agreeing and copying and pasting popular opinions that are tools of mind control and thought implantation, as they convert us into human sharing and agreeing drones. Hive mind, we are the Borg. That is what the One World Order is all about. But the ionosphere is, however, being manipulated by the good old United States government scientists and also private contractors, I'm sure, using HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. And there is a picture, a little bit of how or what rather the HAARP facility looks a little bit like. Moving on, HAARP, the High Active Auroral Research Program, ELF low frequency waves produced by HAARP can target selected areas and can weather engineer and create mood changes affecting millions of people. Yesterday here in Toronto, at time of recording, it was a constant barrage of chemtrailing, almost like every 10-15 minutes apart. You couldn't look at the sky and see a plane leaving a track and the residue of previous trails. And lo and behold, yesterday sunny blue skies, today we've had rain, and tomorrow storms are forecast, as well as I believe down in the Gulf Coast there in Mississippi, Louisiana area, they might be getting torrential 20 inches of rain today. But the natural geomagnetic waves coming from the ground are being replaced by artificially created low frequency ground waves coming from Gwen Towers Ground Wave Emergency Network. And these transmitters, placed 200 miles apart across the USA, allow specific frequencies to be tailored to the geometric field strength in each area. Before we carry on, just understand that your cellular phone, your smart technology, can also be tailor-made and deliver specific frequencies to a targeted individual, not necessarily a targeted area, a targeted individual. So they are sort of narrowing it down. There's mass manipulation, there's individual mass manipulation. We aren't free of manipulation. It's where you have to open your eyes and free your mind. Believe nothing, question everything. The United States and the globe is bathed in a magnetic field which goes up to 500 feet, and it also goes down, so that everybody can be affected and mind controlled. The Gwen transmitters have many functions, including weather control, mind control, behavior, and move control, and sending synthetic telepathy as infrasound to victims with government control, mind control implants. Maybe this is what they are trying to introduce to us via the vaccine. And again, something we do need to be very aware of was Operation Crimson Mist in Rwanda, and similar in modern society to what was going on then. There's a lot of disassociation. The government of Rwanda and all the official governmental officials were killed in a plane crash that was part of a black secret American alphabet agency operation in Rwanda. Take out the heads and officials and the rest of the will crumble, so to speak. But there were two conflicting insurgent tribes in Rwanda that were looking to take control in the absence of government, and the CIA, using agent provocateurs and frequencies and such forth, was an experiment for this technology, manipulated the minds of both sides of the tribe, same people influencing the both, and sort of kicked up a lot of confrontation and angry and anxiety against each other. And that's a little bit what we have in modern society around the world: maskers, non-maskers, creatures. These kind of people are battering out when they don't realize they are all the same livestock on the same farm. We're all sheep lined up for slaughter. Some of us will be designated as useful eaters. Some of us will be useless eaters and probably will inadvertently end up as Soylent Green. But all the technology is saturated around us in our homes, on buildings, in the ground, every 200 miles apart over the USA. Gwen towers, and these can trigger the same frequencies and effects that were used by the CIA out in Rwanda back in '93 that did ultimately end in a genocide. Let that sink in, guys. So are we being, pitted against each other in the divide and conquer under the COVIDian guys, the anti-lockdowners and the pro-maskers? This sort of stuff is straight from Crimson Mist. Create two opposing factors and then stimulate them with desired propaganda, and then blast them with frequencies that will turn them into essentially rage-based zombies. But these functions, as we just said, they can send telepathy as infrasound to victims with implants. Are they trying to implant us with injections? I'm not entirely sure what to make of vaccines. I do believe it is part and parcel of propaganda and kind of acknowledging them, and the divide and conquer might be sort of empowering it, but I'm not entirely certain if or not they are injecting people who are getting the vaccine with these nano implants that can be activated. But Gwen works in conjunction with HAARP, hand in hand. One symbiotically fuels the other. Dr. Adrija Pulhariak, if I'm reading that right, found that clairvoyance brainwaves became 8 hertz when their psychic powers were operative, and a person can deliberately shift his consciousness from one level to another, making 8 hertz waves. One person emitting a certain frequency can make another also resonate to the same frequency. Again, a little bit why they have the social circles and have 6 friends and sit in a little circle is so that they can kind of create this, so that there be sort of the prime candidate that will be targeted to resonate at 8 gigahertz, and then his little social circle buddies will also resonate on at the same, making little sort of splinter cells of hive mind controlled orders. But our brains are extremely vulnerable to any technology which sends out ELF waves. I really don't know what is going on with the screen there. Pulharic, whatever his name is, discovered that 7.83 hertz, the Earth's pulse rate, made a person feel good, producing an altered state. 1080 hertz, remember we have 1080 HD televisions, causes riotous behavior, and funny enough, 6.6 hertz causes depression. The individual whose name I can't read presented the mental effects of ELF to military leaders, but they refused to believe him. The US government eventually burned down his house in New York to shut him up, and he fled to Mexico. He has since met the CIA and started working for them, and he created a dental tooth implant which mind control victims can claim was put in their mouth, causing them to hear voices in their head. Text to skull technology, voice of God technology. The Russians discovered the mental effects of ELF and began zapping the US embassy in Moscow. Remember the woodpecker effect, focusing on 10 hertz, which puts people into a hypnotic state. Good old Nikola Tesla revealed in 1901 power could be transmitted through the ground, and it used ELF waves, and nothing would stop or weaken these signals. The Russians retrieved his papers, and they were finally returned to Yugoslavia after his death, according to the article. Again, many of us do know that good old Donald Trump's uncle obtained these papers, so I'm not sure if not they did arrive in Yugoslavia, or once Trump's grandfather like photocopied them, or his uncle rather photocopied and copied them, he then sent them over, or sent them only part of what he wanted them to have. Alpha waves are used in televisions, and electromagnetic oscillations in the frequency range of 8 to 12 hertz, arising from synchronous and coherent electrical activity of thalamic peacemaker cells in humans. I don't know what I got a little bit lost there, but predominantly I can't read that word. These originate from the occipital lobe during wakeful relaxation with closed eyes. ASMR, guys, very, very popular, where people relax, listen to tingly sounds in whispering voices with their eyes closed, often with headphones on. Alpha waves place you into a trance-like state as you are watching television, and as you are told what to think by scripted newsreaders, what to buy, where to shop, what to wear, what to eat. At the same time, you are disassociated from reality and the real problems that exist in the world by being engulfed in the latest episode of Jersey Shore or American Idol. Each one of the major media corporations gets their news from one or two places, Reuters and the Associated Press, and Reuters is owned by the Rothschilds. RHIC, radio hypnotic cerebral control. This calls for the implantation of a very small micro radio receiver. It acts as a stimulator, which will simulate a muscle or electronic brain response. In turn, this can set off a hypno-programmed cue to the victim of subject, which would elicit a preconditioned behavior. Developed by the Pentagon, supposedly, and remember last summer, upload on TSP TV, Manchurian Karens. What's the deal with that? In that, I suggested that maybe people who have become Karens, have been programmed to become Karens in certain things, will trigger them when they are out and about in society. And, you know, the behavior of attacking non-maskers might be that preconditioned behavior that was programmed into the Manchurian Karens. I really don't know what's going on with that screen on the side there. EDOM, electronic dissolution of memory, and this calls for remotely controlled production within the brain of acetylcholine, which blocks the transmission of nerve impulses to the brain, which results in sort of a selective amnesia. According to an informative article, both of these methods are already being used. Obey, never trust your thoughts. I think that says, I don't know what is going on with this screen. It's like one side's melting. How much more have we got? I'm going to continue with this. It's nearly at the end, and we'll finish up with a few more videos for your informative and alternative educational purpose. But the corporate mass media is now in the hands of 6 corporations, and the top 3 of those corporations are General Electric, Westinghouse, and Disney. And these 3 take control of 90% of all book publishing, films, videos, radio, and television. ELF is a high-tech weapon. It is a silent weapon for a quiet war, abbreviated for extra low frequency signals, which mimic natural brain waves, so replacing our natural brain waves with synthetic brainwave, sorry, I couldn't think of the word then. It is not only to be used to brainwash and control people, it is also used to physically attack them as well. The towers are everywhere. You're expected to presume they are only for cell phones, but it is not an accident that the frequency band chosen for cell phones are just so happens the frequency that matches the second order waves that Wilhelm Reich discovered in the late 1940s to affect thought transmitting and to allow the mind to be manipulated without the victim realizing. So I'm saying, guys, how much thought control is being programmed into us. Have we ever even once had our own thought, or have our own thoughts been implanted and suggested subliminally to us with all of these technologies and methodologies available to the powers that be that are really out to control each and every one of us? We are livestock on the human farm. Some of us useless, some of us useful eaters, and more importantly, the useful ones they do want to be able to control, like a hive mind with a copy and pasted opinion, sharing and agreeing with the narrative of the one world order. But he was outraged to find that the CIA was planning and is using it on American people, and he was covertly murdered in a federal prison in 1957, just a few weeks before he was due to be released. He was reported to have had a heart attack, and heart attacks are something that can be triggered via frequency. And another individual that died of a heart attack, who was also a very outspoken person against the establishment, was George Carlin. But the device is known as the orgone generator, and this can disable these ELF towers from exerting their mind control functions. Radio hypnotic intercerebral control. This calls for the implantation of a very small micro radio receiver, and it acts as a simulator which will simulate a muscle or electronic brain response. This in turn can set off a hypo-programmed cue in the victim of subject, which could elicit a preconditioned behavior. And this was developed by the Pentagon. Didn't we just read that? And something about selective memory. Sorry, I think we I don't know what's going on here. It is acting a little bit bizarrely, but I will continue despite the interference from possibly artificially intelligent algorithms. But electronic dissolution of memory, this calls for remotely controlled production within the brain of, we have read this, which blocks the transmission of nerve impulses in the brain, which results in a sort of selective amnesia. MK Ultra mind control revealed the true story. 1998. We are nearly at the bottom of this article. My forgiveness there. I think that the article actually repeated some of the stuff from above. But Bryce Taylor is the pseudonym for Susan Ford, one of the highest level MK Ultra mind control victims ever to come forward and reveal her story. It took her nearly 13 years, starting in 1985, following a car accident that threw her through the windshield of that car. It wasn't really an accident as much as a result of mind control programming, which compelled her to commit suicide. That was the Theta programming. And if she began to recover critical memories about her role as a top-level NASA/CIA mind-controlled asset who was used as a sex slave and message or drug courier for every president from Kennedy to Clinton. And she was Henry Kissinger's personal secretary / human computer, in brackets, file storage and retrieval. And she did that for 19 years. Her own handler was comedian Bob Hope, and she was loaned out to many famous and well-known entertainment personalities in order to oblige them to be beholding and to be manipulated by Hope and his Illuminati pals. We covered Bob Hope in a couple of previous streams on this subject. So they could, and they were all programmed to be manipulated by Bob Hope and his Illuminati pals, so they could be used as worker bees to help usher in the Luciferian New World Order. And that does conclude this article. It does give us a brief little indication on some of the... I really look at what's going on with that screen there. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully that didn't affect you're able to, I'm not going to say enjoy this. It's nothing enjoyable about finding out about all this technology that is used to alter our brain waves, our thoughts, our actions, our behaviors, what we think, what we eat, what we drink. All of this stuff has been implanted into us, and the only way you can set yourself a little bit free from it is to have your eyes open, be aware, do some research into this technology, and limit the amount of interaction you have with cellular and smart technology. But I am gonna, as I said, stop this article now and head you back to a few more videos, and I am getting close to the deadline time where I do need to stop recording and finish up the processing and editing stage in order to get this ready in time for you to watch right now. See you soon.
I'm at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, having an electrode attached to my head and arm so that I can accentuate my focus by electricity. Low-level electricity.
Wright-Patterson houses the Air Force Research Lab's Applied Neuroscience branch.
Instead of working on technology that enhances an airplane or the computational systems that the airmen use, we're taking a different approach in that we're seeing what we can do to actually enhance the airmen themselves.
While this approach is nothing new to the Air Force, instead of giving pilots extremely strong stimulants, Dr. McKinley's team is using transcranial direct current stimulation, which is simply where you put electrodes on either side of the brain and run a current from one to the other to amplify the parts of the brain it's zapping through.
The distractions are much less, and I can kind of zone in on each individual category instead of being overwhelmed.
Whenever you're ready, just hit start experiment.
Oh, shoot. I'm not great at this. Not amazing.
So once we turn it on, the typical sensations are a tingly sensation.
Okay.
So basically you're going to do the same thing again, and then we'll see what happens. So go ahead.
I feel a lot more into this.
Right. Yeah. Your score is down here. That's first time. That's second time.
I cleaned up a lot. Yeah. Yeah, it sort of feels like I kind of bypassed the drinking of coffee and put it just straight up into my nose.
Attached to this mouse's head can wirelessly inject drugs deep into its brain at the click of a button. Scientists from the universities of Washington and Illinois say it can both shine light pulses onto brain cells and deliver drugs. The remote-controlled device has an ultra-thin probe, smaller than the width of a human hair, which is implanted into the brain. It's powered by a tiny battery with drugs contained in small reservoirs. Its microfluidic channels can administer drugs, while a tiny LED delivers photostimulation. Here, the mouse on the right was made to walk in circles after a drug was injected into specific brain cells. Other tests use pulses from the tiny LED to stimulate the neurons of mice engineered to respond to light. The scientists say they were able to determine the path a mouse walked when they stimulated the brain in different ways. Their implant, they say, is less damaging to brain tissue than the metal tubes, or cannulas, scientists typically use to inject drugs. They hope such a device could eventually lead to the development of less invasive probes to wirelessly treat a range of neurological disorders in humans.
Imagine the implications of a weapon with no visible trace. A weapon that could knock out tanks, ships, and planes as fast as the speed of light. The same technology with modifications could disorient and even tranquilize military personnel, rendering them virtually helpless in the battle zone. These are the new weapons of war we will examine in this series. For the past 40 years, the world has been riveted by the threat of nuclear war, and more recently by the prospect of space defenses using lasers and other modern technologies. But while both sides at the Geneva summit will be focusing on these matters, progress is being made in even newer weapons that could render any arms agreement relatively useless. Lightning is the most dramatic form of energy to be found in nature. Scientists have succeeded in creating limited types of artificial lightning, and some think that these could be the forerunners of a new type of directed energy weapon. Segment of the electromagnetic spectrum and are thus referred to as radio frequency weapons. Dr. James Frazier has researched electromagnetic effects for the Air Force for over 10 years, and he, like a small but growing number of weapons experts, feels that radio frequency, or RF weapons, could be the wild card in the ongoing arms race.
You could have tremendous amounts of radiative power, and what you did with that power then is a matter of engineering design and what your goal is.
Robert Bass, a physicist and PhD in mathematics, is working on U.S. weapons research. He says that the Soviets seem to be ahead in a number of areas, and especially in RF weapons.
We are behind the Soviet Union in directed energy weapons based on 60 gigahertz microwave beams.
Dr. Bass and others feel the most likely form of Soviet RF weaponry would be high-powered microwaves, similar to a focused, ultra-high-intensity radar beam. It would literally cook humans and knock out computers and electronic surveillance and communications gear. An operational RF weapon, relatively cheap and reusable, could devastate sophisticated and expensive war machinery. The $20 million F-16 fighter, for example, is totally controlled through electronic sensors and computers. With no manual flight controls, the plane would literally fall out of the sky after being hit with a high-intensity pulse of microwave radiation. Scientists say that microwaves and other types of RF pulses operating at specific frequencies or windows can be transmitted with little or no loss of power. Machines known as gyrotrons can produce the massive pulses needed to drive these devices, and it's believed that the Soviet Union has a 3 to 5 year lead in this technology. Over the past year, CNN has repeatedly asked the Department of Defense and the Air Force about radio frequency weapons. After much resistance, DoD finally said that the subject was too sensitive to discuss. In my next report, unexplained cloud-like phenomena, which may be evidence of a Soviet breakthrough in RF technology. Chuck DeCaro, CNN Special Assignments. This is a Soviet LIDA machine. It transmits low-energy radio pulses between 0 and 100 cycles per second. In the Soviet Union, LIDAs have been used for years to tranquilize psychiatric patients without physical contact. This sound, which is received by shortwave radios in the United States, is generated by another Soviet radio frequency device. It is known as the woodpecker because of its tapping noise. It is broadcast by a number of high-powered radio transmitters operating deep in the Soviet Union since July 4th, 1976. Though the official Defense Department explanation of the woodpecker is that it is an over-the-horizon radar designed to track U.S. missile launches, some scientists suspect that the woodpecker is designed to interfere with human brain function.
As far as I'm concerned, the potential that this has for producing a direct psychoactive effect upon the total American population is there. Has never been disproven.
Dr. Robert Becker is a pioneer in the field of bioeffects of electromagnetism.
The signal range within which the woodpecker operates is that which has been reported by many investigators to produce a tranquilizing effect upon animals.
We are just incredibly sensitive to these magnetic stimuli.
Dr. Bob Beck, a PhD in nuclear engineering, has done extensive research into electromagnetic effects on humans.
The signal was permeating power grids in the United States. It was being picked up by power lines, re-radiated. It was coming into the homes on the light circuits.
I was surprised after coming here that the influence of electromagnetic fields was almost completely ignored here.
Dr. Larissa Valenskaya was heavily involved in Soviet electromagnetic research before being allowed to emigrate to the United States. She told CNN about Soviet research in electromagnetic effects.
They demonstrated theoretically and also demonstrated experimentally that low frequency, low energy electromagnetic fields also can possess biological efficiency because any field not only carries energy but also carries information.
She stated that the research was carried out on orders from the Soviet government.
Of course, the military were extremely interested in this potential of remote influence.
Is the United States military working in the field of electronic mind control? Officially, the Department of Defense will not comment because the subject area is, quote, too sensitive. But CNN has learned from this government scientist, who did not want to be identified, that a Navy laboratory conducted research into the use of an RF device for counterterrorism and special operations.
It's possible to entrain a certain percentage of a population, apparently, with weak magnetic fields.
The study also showed that RF signals could dissolve certain types of rat brain cells at a distance, causing disorientation and nausea. According to the scientist, even though the program was successful, the government never followed up on it. Dr. James Frazier did electromagnetic research for the U.S. Air Force for many years. At one time, he proposed a battlefield RF weapons system.
You could make an antenna that would be carryable by a helicopter, and that this could be expected to produce a wide variety of symptoms, actually, by humans who happen to be standing in the beam.
According to Dr. Fraser, the Air Force never followed up. At Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, another RF weapons concept is nicknamed the brain bomb. According to the book Star Warriors, the brain bomb would focus a nuclear blast into a huge pulse of low-frequency RF energy that would stun huge numbers of troops. Apparently, it too has not yet been funded. The Department of Defense will not comment about Soviet RF weapons, or if American RF weapons development is going forward. However, experts interviewed by CNN say that the Soviets are apparently ahead and could exploit that lead in a surprise strategic move, a move that could have grave consequences for the United States. From Washington, this is Chuck DeCaro, CNN Special Assignments. This is a Tesla coil. It was invented some 90 years ago, but now a growing number of experts in the United States feel that it may form the basis of a new generation of Soviet weapons. They are known as radio frequency, or RF weapons, because they operate in the radio frequency spectrum. Their existence is noted in this U.S. Department of Defense publication, which says the Soviets could use them to destroy components of missiles, to interfere with radar and other electronic systems, and even to alter human mind functions. The concept of RF weaponry was predicted at the turn of the century by Nikola Tesla, an American who had emigrated from Yugoslavia. He is best remembered as the man who invented alternating current electricity. In 1899, Tesla built this giant coil which produced 10 million volts of artificial lightning. From it, he theorized the possibility of death rays. This and many other of his ideas about the physics of electricity were ridiculed by the scientific establishment.
Pure science is not a sure thing. You can't predict what's going to work out and what's not going to work out.
Robert Golka, a research scientist, built a replica of the Tesla coil about 80 years later. Golka was trying to produce a phenomenon known as ball lightning. He also used the Tesla coil to conduct testing for the U.S. Air Force.
What I was doing was setting in maybe 5-foot-long models of advanced fighter aircraft, and we would want to try to find out which part of the airplane was more vulnerable to lightning strikes, whether it was a wingtip or the canard where the pilot sat.
These experiments could also demonstrate the effect of the electromagnetic pulse of a nuclear blast, and Golka says the effect of RF weapons as well. Golka thinks that Tesla's theory that electromagnetic power could be transmitted through the Earth and its atmosphere without wires is a key element in the Soviet Union's work on RF weapons. Tesla's novel weapons theories were generally ignored in the United States. Nikola Tesla died in 1943, and after the Second World War, all his papers and effects were shipped to his native Yugoslavia, where they were enshrined in a museum. Some say that that museum proved to be a gold mine for Soviet weapons scientists.
We haven't even formally, so far as I know, to ourselves admitted that these weapons exist in the hands of the Soviet Union.
Weapons analyst Tom Bearden, a retired U.S. Army lieutenant colonel, is among a small group of scientists and engineers who believe that the Soviets have perfected Tesla's ideas and are developing radio frequency weapons on a scale unimagined in this country.
There have been a series of tests of these kinds of weapons, apparently, for a number of years. For example, airliners from Iran, before the fall of the Shah, saw deep within the Soviet Union very large, glowing spherical balls of light, which started out small and then expanded to very large size, which are apparently these kinds of weapons for use in an anti-ballistic missile defense role.
Bearden believes that these satellite photographs are of mysterious non-nuclear explosions near an uninhabited island in the East Siberian Sea, and that they are discharges from an RF weapon that uses intersecting energy beams called scalars.
In doing so, you can create, for example, either an electromagnetic explosion at a distance, or you can create an electromagnetic implosion at a distance, the extraction of energy from a distant point. This would look like a cold explosion, so to speak. And I believe the thing on April the 9th, 1984, off the coast of Japan that involved several 747 jet airliners, I believe that incident was a test of a cold explosion weapons. At least it met all the characteristics.
Pilot Doug Happ was in one of the 5 airline crews that saw an incredibly large cloud rising from the moonlit overcast below.
It looked like a plate coming up through an overcast, but it just kept expanding. And as it got higher, it was apparent that you could see right through the middle of it, so it looked like a big smoke ring. At the time that we first noticed this cloud, we weren't sure what to do, and we took no evasive action because we didn't know which way to go. And I think eventually we either ran through it or it completely engulfed us.
Happ says when his flight reached Anchorage, Alaska, it was checked for radioactive contamination. None was found. Dr. James Frazier has done extensive research in electromagnetic effects for the U.S. Air Force.
It could be due to a strong electromagnetic beam, but we don't know that. They can also be caused by chance thermal gradients. We've had for several years studies of clear air turbulence, for instance, which have produced this kind of disruption. The people who cited those are experienced pilots and should have been familiar with that kind of event, and this apparently was something outside their experience.
There have been a number of times when Soviet technological surprise has upset the strategic balance. In In 1948, the Soviets detonated an A-bomb years before it was thought possible. In 1957, the Soviets stunned the world by launching Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite. And in 1976, the Soviets were discovered to have been embarked upon a program to build particle beam weapons, a discovery which led 5 years later to America's Star Wars program. In each case, the United States was able to regain the balance. But this time, with radio frequency weapons, some scientists feel that the Soviet lead may be permanent. In my next report, how radio frequency devices can be used as weapons against the human mind. Chuck DeCaro, CNN, on special assignment.
You can turn off the propaganda by turning off their radio or television. The ultimate weapon in the info war would be so secret, so invisible, so undetectable, you would never know your mind was under attack. At Laurentian University in Ontario, Canada, a young student is about to undergo one of the strangest experiences of her life. They're hooking Denise's brain up to an electroencephalograph, or EEG machine. For 30 to 40 minutes, this will monitor her brainwaves. While these electric coils attached on either side of her head will immerse her brain in an electromagnetic field. Her brain actually completes the circuit between the two coils. The field pulsing through her brain is less powerful than one given off by a digital clock radio. But acutely controlled and focused at specific parts of the brain, it will open Denise's mind to outside suggestion by this man. Dr. Michael Persinger is a professor of psychology and neuroscience. He is designing ways to put the power of mind control to good use. Dr. Persinger's research focuses on brain trauma. And he uses carefully controlled doses of electromagnetic radiation to induce relaxation and alleviate pain.
So what Sandra did was to initiate a opiate releasing pattern. That's a burst firing field that was stimulated once every 4 seconds. And that produces relaxation and a very pleasant sensation. Similarly, using the appropriate fields, we can induce fear and apprehension, but clearly that would be unethical in that setting.
Dr. Persinger's tests suggest that carefully programmed electromagnetic frequencies can tap into individual brains and influence people's emotions.
The cognitive processes of the human brain are really quite simple. And if you understand how they work, you can make entire populations think and decide the manner in which you wish.
Many experts are skeptical of such an Orwellian scenario, but Persinger thinks the implications are chillingly real.
Suppose you generate a field that produces fear, fundamental fear, in large numbers of people. And then over the television or traditional ways, you say, the reason we're having this fear is because of this particular group. And now you start to move the population believing in the direction that you wish.
To influence 250 million people, the equivalent of the entire population of the United States, may not be that difficult. According to Dr. Persinger, we already have the technology, satellites and television and radio transmitters. Mind control may already be happening. We know the mysterious PSYOPs plane can beam persuasive sounds and pictures into people's television sets. Will it someday beam disturbing frequencies directly into the mind? Mind control will be the ultimate non-lethal weapon. The prospect of a war without pain or death, where victory comes without a single shot being fired, should be a cause for jubilation. Smart military technologies and non-lethal weapons could at least prevent the awful carnage of large-scale head-to-head combat. What then can we expect of war in the 21st century? Which war? The threat of unspeakable destruction from plasma cannons and lasers on high? Or the prospect of national computer crashes? Paradoxically, the promise of truly bloodless war may come only with the most devastating weapon of all. If the human mind
2020. Maybe one without so much as a whimper, let alone a bang.
Your brain. To find out if such a thing could actually work, I offered my own brain for a test. It seemed like fun at the time.
Hold it up, you can look at it.
Psychiatrist and neurologist Mark George said he could make my thumb twitch.
Jeez, it does.
Oh, that was nice. Using a map of the brain, he can zap the area that controls a specific body part, like my toe.
Oh, wow. Is that I stroked a little too much?
A little bit, yeah, it was a little much.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The wand can even affect someone's speech.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
And once the pulse is removed,
25, 26.
Everything goes back to normal.
29, 30.
It's sort of a remarkable thing that one can put something over somebody's head and modify the way they behave.
Wow. The wand works by producing a powerful magnetic pulse.
It doesn't look like a lot, but the magnetic field that it generates is about the strength of an MRI machine, of a very strong MRI machine.
Since electricity and magnetism are really just two forms of the same thing, a magnet can affect the electrical signals in your brain. Now this is your brain. It's basically an electric web of billions of neurons wired together. When a strong magnetic pulse hits these neurons, it alters their electric current. The process is called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS.
Electricity is the currency of the brain. All thoughts, all beliefs, all actions are just electrical impulses. And so TMS, we're actually able to get in there and influence the currency of the brain focally and non-invasively.
The stronger the magnetic pulse, the deeper into the brain it goes. And by adjusting the pattern of the pulse, you can change the way that part of the brain functions.
We can turn a part of the brain up or down or temporarily turn it off. It doesn't take a genius to see that it should be a pretty fertile way to begin to understand how.
Did you know that every day we are surrounded by invisible electromagnetic radiation? From microwaves, dishwashers, computers, televisions, power lines, wiring in the building, to cell phones. They all produce electromagnetic radiation. You know what? Raise your hand if you own a cell phone. Now guess what? These days, every kid wants to have a cell phone, but cell phones give radiation, and if exposed to too much radiation, you may get a tumor or cancer. Do you know that nowadays kids start using cell phones as early as the age of 5? Now guess what happens to their brains when they use cell phones at such an early age? They get 5 times as much radiation than adults do. The reason it's easier for radiation to reach a kid's brain is because a kid's skull is thinner than an adult skull, which lets a lot more radiation to the brain of a child. When radiation goes through your body, it can kill cells, and if those cells don't heal properly, they might become cancer. Today, I want to give you some tips on how to protect yourself from this radiation. One way is to keep the phone 6 inches away from your face. Use a speakerphone or a headset. Also, it would be better if you could text as often as possible so you don't have the phone close to your face. Every time you're about to call someone, and I mean every time, make sure you're not in an area with weak network signal, because when the signal is weak, your phone will work a lot harder to get a better signal, and therefore it will give out a lot more radiation. Also, never sleep with your cell phone, because when you're sleeping and the cell phone is near your head, it's going to be throwing radiation through your head all night long, and that's never good. Some people even say that when you have a cell phone close to your ear, it's like holding a mini microwave next to your face. We are still learning about the risks that cell phone radiation can cause. A lot more research still needs to be done. It's actually just like smoking. Many years ago, we never knew that it caused cancer. Till years later, researchers discovered that it did. The reality is that we live in a world full of technology. We can't escape it. It makes our lives a lot easier. But at the same time, we need to be smart about how we use it and make sure that we protect ourselves from these unnecessary risks that can harm us.
Phones, but there's long been a question: does heavy cell phone use hurt human health? Lindsay Davis reports on a major new study which for the first time shows cell phones do seem to have some mysterious effect on the brain.
Some are calling the study a landmark event in our understanding of how cell phones affect the human body. 47 participants had cell phones placed on their left and right ears. One cell phone was activated but muted, the other was turned off. After 50 minutes, the researchers took PET scans of the subjects. Look at what they found. The image on the left shows what happened when the cell phone was turned on. The most active areas are in red. Notice the upper right part of the brain. That's the area closest to the antenna. Compare that with this image on the right of the same subject when they had their cell phones turned off. The researchers were hoping to determine if the radiation from the cell phones had any physiological impact at all.
I confess that after the findings, I changed my behavior. So now I use it on a speakerphone. I just put a wire on my earphones.
For years, studies have tried to link cell phones and cancer, but they've been inconclusive. Experts say this new study offers perhaps the first real step in the search for an answer.
This is a study that is interesting and will almost certainly provoke additional studies.
We have a responsibility to investigate whether there are or there are not long-lasting consequences from repeated stimulation after 5 or 10 years of cell phone exposure.
CTIA, the Wireless Trade Association, told us the leading global health organizations have overwhelmingly indicated that wireless devices are not a public health risk. Still, an editorial accompanying the study said that the findings warrant further investigation.
And it sure gets your attention.
Yes.
Thank you.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government, and I'm here to help." Do you know who said that? President Ronald Reagan. Well, I am from the government. I lead a team of weapons innovators at the Air Force Research Lab, New Mexico, where I've worked for over 17 years. Prior to that, I spent 6 years on active duty, and I love our country. I married a patriot. He retired after serving 20 years on active duty, and he still works for the Air Force today. But the real reason why I do what I do is for my 2 patriotic children. That's Brad on the left and Cody on the right. And while I could talk to you all day long about why I do what I do, the real question is, why am I here at TEDx? I'm here because I need your help. You are perhaps more influential than you realize on how our military engages in conflict. Our morals, values, and ethics affect decisions made by our commanders in the field every day. I want you to be familiar with the technologies we're developing for them so that you can support them in the decisions that they have to make. I mentioned that I lead a team of weapons innovators. We make directed energy systems useful for national defense. But wait, what's directed energy? You probably recall that when I hold this pen in the air, I give it potential energy. And you can't see it, but there's an X up here. I've even got a target. When I drop it, it has kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is what weapons have used for literally hundreds of thousands of years. Spears and rocks have evolved into bullets, bombs and ballistic and cruise missiles, but they all use that same basic kinetic technology. Directed energy harnesses energy from across the electromagnetic spectrum and focuses it into a useful beam. Lasers are directed energy systems. Lasers, like the pointer in my hand, are useful for bringing your attention to the awesome artwork behind us. I feel like someone's staring at me. Astronomers use pointers just like this one to point out constellations in the night sky. Heck, some of you probably find directed energy useful for entertaining your pets. Lasers are so cool. They are the stuff of Star Trek and Star Wars, and I'm guessing you're probably pretty comfortable with this technology. And while it's a large part of what we do at Air Force Research Lab, it's not what I work on. The team I lead develops high-power microwave weapons. Yeah. I don't mean that we're trying to figure out better ways of throwing ovens out of aircraft doors, because that's back to kinetic. We investigate different frequencies on various items. And microwaves particularly are defined as frequencies with wavelengths ranging all the way from 1 meter down to 1 millimeter. And there are different effects on different things, but today I'm going to focus on just one, and that's the counter-electronic effect. You know that microwaves are fairly good at transferring energy into water-based things, like your food, over time. What you may not realize is that in thousandths of a second, those same microwaves are extremely good at disabling, disrupting, and if conditions are right, even destroying electronic circuits. All of this in half the time it takes you to blink your eyes. That super short time span is insufficient to affect a person, but it's more than enough time to affect electronics. I'm from a lab, and we love experiments. So here's an experiment for you. Go home, put a cup of water or your leftovers from last night in your microwave for 1 second. You'll find that 1 second is insufficient time to affect that item, just as it's insufficient time to affect a person. Now, if you really don't like your cell phone, maybe you're in the market for a new microwave, turn your cell phone on and put it in your microwave for 1 second. I really do not recommend you do this, but if you did, you would probably see your cell phone reset itself. You might have to pull it out and do a hard restart on it. It is extremely likely that you will never use that phone to connect to another Wi-Fi network ever again. That's the power of microwaves against electronics. As our world has evolved, electronics have become pivotal tools, and our adversaries are just as crippled when their computers or cell phones go down as you are. When you're in an airport, your flight's been delayed, you're frantically trying to make other arrangements, and your smartphone dies. But here's why this technology is really so important. On the 3rd of October of 2015, the U.S. Air Force was tasked with disabling a command and control headquarters belonging to the Taliban over in Afghanistan. Through a series of terribly unfortunate decisions, they identified this building as that headquarters. And 3 days later, this is what it looked like. That facility was actually a Doctors Without Borders hospital. And 42 people are reported to have been injured or killed in that attack. But the team I lead is developing options. Allow me to share with you a video of a counter-electronic system in action. We call it CHAMP. And while the video you're going to see is sort of cartoonish, I assure you the system is very real. We developed it between a partnership of the Air Force Research Lab New Mexico, Sandia National Labs, Boeing, and Raytheon. And in 2012, we flew it over targets at the Utah Test and Training Range. The system worked exactly as we predicted it would. So in this video, you'll see that the Air Force has once again been tasked with disabling a command and control center, and this time we've added a chemical and biological weapons production plant, both located in a city. We choose to use a champ-like weapon. You see a bomber fly in and drops off the cruise missile, which houses that high-power microwave system. The missile flies over the city and targets the command and control center, leaving it black, passes the hospital, and engages that weapons production plant. As the system flies off, the people are left to wonder, why have my communications stopped? Why did my computers stop working? How come I'm not producing my weapons? All of this without leaving a single smoking hole, without harming a single person. Stop our adversaries without harming a soul. Why aren't we using this? Well, there are a lot of challenges to adopting new technologies. I mean, let's face it, change is hard, right? Some of these systems can be kind of pricey, but we are working on ways to make them more affordable. A particular challenge for microwave weapons is, was it effective? I mean, when you leave a building in rubble, it's pretty easy to know that whatever was going on before in that building is probably not going on now. But when you do no damage, how can you tell? We're working on solutions to that too, and we will solve those problems. The problem that only you can solve is whether or not using these systems aligns with our morals, values, and ethics as a culture. Only you can decide, but I want you to know that these systems are designed to maximize damage to the way our adversaries go about harming us and minimize damage to their person. I know that the morals, values, and ethics problem is real, because in the early 2000s, my organization developed a different technology. We called it active denial, and we chose a millimeter wave frequency because we want you to feel it. That system, the signal penetrates your skin to the depth of about 3 sheets of paper thick, no deeper, and it causes you to feel hot. The intent is to get people's attention and have them stop doing whatever it is they're doing. So I've got another experiment for you. Make a pizza. When you've preheated your oven to 450 or 500 degrees and you go to pop that sucker in, you open up your oven door and that wave of heat comes out and hits you in the face. Instinctively, you close your eyes and turn your head and the feeling passes. Well, you've just basically felt the active denial beam. I know, because I've been hit by it. It is uncomfortable when you are in the beam. But then sensation stops as soon as you step out. Unfortunately, we have done an insufficient job of educating the public about that technology, and misperceptions about it have so far created an environment that has discouraged our commanders from choosing to use that technology operationally. But I ask you to think about whether or not it's more aligned with our morals to shoot guns at a car that's perhaps erratically approaching an entry control point, or is it more aligned with our values to make that driver so uncomfortable that they're no longer interested in heading toward that gate? Is it more moral to us to shoot bullets at protesters on our borders who are throwing rocks at our Border Patrol agents? Or maybe would active denial be a choice that's more aligned with our values? Only you can decide. But let's not allow active denial's fate to happen with our high-power microwave counter-electronic systems. Had the commander in Afghanistan had the choice to use a high-power microwave system, and had they still mistakenly identified that hospital as their target, 3 days later, the facility would have looked like this. And I guarantee you, 42 people would not have been injured or killed. President John Kennedy said, "I look forward to a great future for America, a future in which our country matches its military strength with our moral restraint. Its wealth with our wisdom, its power with our purpose. I'm from the government, and I need your help. Use your power to create for our children the future to which President Kennedy and we all aspire.
You're not going to hear it. You're not going to smell it. You're going to feel it.
It felt like opening up an oven door, almost mixed with a sting from about my sternum to my neck. So, like, you started really feeling it on my neck before I had to kind of instinctually jump out of the way.
Go. Yeah. It still works the same way. Yeah, it works.
Picture like an invisible searchlight, right? You know what a searchlight looks like? So an invisible searchlight of radio waves going downrange. So it's this big when it starts, and at the end, it's the same size.
This is a military area. Move away from the perimeter. I say again, this is a military area. Move away from the perimeter.
There could be some perimeter incursions along an installation that you may have. There could be some crowd control where you're trying to make sure that you de-escalate the situation and kind of calm things down and break up these crowds before it gets out of control.
By a number of high-powered radio transmitters operating deep in the Soviet Union since July 4th, 1976. The official Defense Department explanation of the Woodpecker is that it is an over-the-horizon radar designed to track U.S. missile launches. Some scientists suspect that the Woodpecker is designed to interfere with human brain function.
As far as I'm concerned, the potential that this has for producing a direct psychoactive effect upon the total American population is there, has never been disproven.
Dr. Robert Becker is a pioneer in the field of bioeffects of electromagnetism.
The signal range within which the woodpecker operates is that which has been reported by many investigators to produce a tranquilizing effect upon animals.
We are just incredibly sensitive to these magnetic stimuli.
Dr. Bob Beck, a PhD in nuclear engineering, has done extensive research into electromagnetic effects on humans.
The signal was permeating power grids in the United States. It was being picked up by power lines, re-radiated. It was coming into the homes on the light circuits.
I'm surprised after coming here that the influence of electromagnetic fields was almost completely ignored here.
Dr. Larissa Valenskaya was heavily involved in Soviet electromagnetic research before being allowed to emigrate to the United States. She told CNN about Soviet research in electromagnetic effects.
They demonstrated theoretically and also demonstrated experimentally that low frequency, low energy electromagnetic fields also possess biological efficiency because any field not only carries energy but also carries information.
She stated that the research was carried out on orders from the Soviet government.
Of course, the military were extremely interested in this potential of remote influence.
Is the United States military working in the field of electronic mind control? Officially, the Department of Defense will not comment because the subject area is, quote, too sensitive. But CNN has learned from this government scientist, who did not want to be identified, that a Navy laboratory conducted research into the use of an RF device for counterterrorism and special operations.
It's possible to entrain a certain percentage of a population, apparently, with weak magnetic fields.
The study also showed that RF signals could dissolve certain types of rat brain cells at a distance, causing disorientation and nausea. According to the scientist, even though the program was successful, the government never followed up on it. Dr. James Frazier did electromagnetic research for the U.S. Air Force for many years. At one time, he proposed a battlefield RF weapon system.
You could make an antenna that would be carryable by a helicopter, and that this could be expected to produce a wide variety of symptoms, actually, by humans who happen to be standing in the beam.
According to Dr. Fraser, the Air Force never followed up. Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, another RF weapons concept, is nicknamed the Brain Bomb. According to the book Star Warriors, the Brain Bomb would focus a nuclear blast into a huge pulse of low-frequency RF energy that would stun huge numbers of troops. Apparently, it too has not yet been funded. The Department of Defense will not comment about Soviet RF weapons, or if American RF weapons development is going forward. However, experts interviewed by CNN say that the Soviets are apparently ahead and could exploit that lead in a surprise strategic move, a move that could have grave consequences for the United States. From Washington, this is Chuck DeCaro, CNN's Special Assignments. This is a Tesla coil. It was invented some 90 years ago. But now a growing number of experts in the United States feel that it may form the basis of a new generation of Soviet weapons. They are known as radio frequency or RF weapons because they operate in the radio frequency spectrum. Their existence is noted in this U.S. Department of Defense publication, which says the Soviets could use them to destroy components of missiles, to interfere with radar and other electronic systems, and even to alter human mind functions. The concept of RF weaponry was predicted at the turn of the century by Nikola Tesla, an American who had emigrated from Yugoslavia. He is best remembered as the man who invented alternating current electricity. In 1899, Tesla built this giant coil which produced 10 million volts of artificial lightning. From it, he theorized the possibility of death rays. This and many other of his ideas about the physics of electricity were ridiculed by the scientific establishment.
Pure science is not a sure thing. You can't predict what's going to work out and what's not going to work out.
Robert Golka, a research scientist, built a replica of the Tesla coil about 80 years later. Golka was trying to produce a phenomenon known as ball lightning. He also used the Tesla coil to conduct testing for the U.S. Air Force.
What I was doing was setting in maybe 5-foot-long models of advanced fighter aircraft, and we would want to try to find out which part of the airplane was more vulnerable to lightning strikes, whether it was a wingtip or the canard where the pilot sat.
These experiments could also demonstrate the effect of the electromagnetic pulse of a nuclear blast, and Golka says the effect of RF weapons as well. Golka thinks that Tesla's theory that electromagnetic power could be transmitted through the Earth and its atmosphere without wires is a key element in the Soviet Union's work on RF weapons. Tesla's novel weapons theories were generally ignored in the United States. Nikola Tesla died in 1943. After the Second World War, all his papers and effects were shipped to his native Yugoslavia, where they were enshrined in a museum. Some say that that museum proved to be a gold mine for Soviet weapons scientists.
We haven't even formally, so far as I know, to ourselves admitted these weapons exist in the hands of the Soviet Union.
Weapons analyst Tom Bearden, a retired U.S. Army lieutenant colonel, is among a small group of scientists and engineers who believe that the Soviets have perfected Tesla's ideas and are developing radio frequency weapons on a scale unimagined in this country.
There have been a series of tests of these kinds of weapons, apparently, for a number of years. For example, airliners from Iran, before the fall of the Shah, saw deep within the Soviet Union very large, glowing spherical balls of light, which started out small and then expanded to very large size, which are apparently these kinds of weapons for use in an anti-ballistic missile defense role.
Bearden believes that these satellite photographs are of mysterious non-nuclear explosions near an uninhabited island in the East Siberian Sea, and that they are discharges from an RF weapon that uses intersecting energy beams called scalars.
In doing so, you can create, for example, either an electromagnetic explosion at a distance, or you can create an electromagnetic implosion at a distance, the extraction of energy from a distant point. This would look like a cold explosion, so to speak. And I believe the thing on April the 9th, 1984, off the coast of Japan that involved several 747 jet airliners, I believe that incident was a test of a cold explosion weapons. At least it met all the characteristics.
Pilot Doug Happ was in one of the 5 airline crews that saw an incredibly large cloud rising from the moonlit overcast below.
It looked like a plate coming up through an overcast, but it just kept expanding. As it got higher, it was apparent that you could see right through the middle of it, so it looked like a big smoke ring. At the time that we first noticed this cloud, we weren't sure what to do, and we took no evasive action because we didn't know which way to go. And I think eventually we either ran through it or it completely engulfed us.
App says when his flight reached Anchorage, Alaska, it was checked for radioactive contamination. None was found. Dr. James Fraser has done extensive research in electromagnetic effects for the U.S. Air Force.
It could be due to a strong electromagnetic beam, but we don't know that. They can also be caused by chance term gradients. We've had for several years studies of clear air turbulence, for instance, which have produced this kind of disruption. The people who cited those are experienced pilots and should have been familiar with that kind of event, and this apparently was something outside their experience.
There have been a number of times when Soviet technological surprise has upset the strategic balance. In 1948, the Soviets detonated an A-bomb years before it was thought possible. In 1957, the Soviets stunned the world by launching Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite. And in 1976, the Soviets were discovered to have been embarked upon a program to build particle beam weapons, a discovery which led 5 years later to America's Star Wars program. In each case, the United States was able to regain the balance. But this time, with radio frequency weapons, some scientists feel that the Soviet lead may be permanent. In my next report, how radio frequency devices can be used as weapons against the human mind. Chuck DeCaro, CNN, on special assignment.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna wrap this presentation up now. But briefly, before we do, I just want to point out fightingmonarch.com. This was an article I actually posted to the Reality Decoded Facebook group. Don't know what went on there. I just moved it south for some reason. You call it live. I didn't scroll or do anything. It just popped back to the top there. We're not going to read each and every single one of these, but as I said, this was an article I did post to the Reality Decoded Facebook group, which is a list for 100 patents for mind control technology. fightingmonarch.com. Remember that, patents for mind control. You can put that into a search bar if you want to look further in each and every single one of these patents. It will take you an awful long time because each and every one is thousands of words long. But this come out in May 6th of 2018. A couple of videos we're not going to click on. That's what the Gwen Towers look like. You've probably seen one or two of these in your neighborhood, and they also disguise them as trees and cactus hiding in plain sight. Another video we're not going to watch, and pretty much it sort of starts out talking about most of the stuff we have already spoken about in this presentation and previous ones. But here we go to the first patent. We're not going to read them all, and we're just going to briefly scan through the first few of them just so you can kind of gauge how many there are, basically, and then decide if or not you think that they're using any or all of these technologies against you and I and the rest of the global population. You know, hearing system patent, subliminal presentation system patent. So that basically I could do with that. I could record my presentations onto this technology and then subliminally implant it into your mind, so you don't have to worry about reading or remembering it at all. You could just have it implanted into your minds and you would know the knowledge already. But it was for secret agents, I guess. All of this stuff is dual purpose technology, but needs to know classified operations. They could implant the details of a mission at the very last minute, and the agent would know everything about it, and he'd probably also be inserted with some programming that once he carried out his mission, he would suicide himself. But this list, as I said, is not endless. There are 100 of them, but it is incredibly long. I'm just, as I said, scrolling down casually for you just to sort of see that there is an awful lot of nefarious electromagnetic and radio frequency directed energy silent weapons for silent war technology patents. And look, there's one there. A guy's got what looks like something in his ears, very similar to earbuds, and then a little device on his back that can control the way he thinks. And you know, that little device on his back could quite easily be a cell phone plugged in to headphones, and that is for the brainwave inducing system, which has a US 5954629 patent number, made by some Japanese people, and sensors are provided for detecting brainwaves of a user. So once they sort of read the brainwaves of the user, oh my goodness, his brainwaves are thinking things that we don't want him to. Let's zap him with some frequencies, or let's just remove those memories altogether. Moving on, as I said, hundreds and hundreds of patents here, and there's a girl in a little bubble there. She almost looks like our little dancing anime Aomao. Very similar there. Layout, overlap detection, and selective flattening in computer implanted integrated circuit designs. My goodness, who come up with that name? Probably a man with an extremely small penis, I would imagine. But moving on, just to keep showing you apparatus for audibly communicating speech using the radio frequency, putting thoughts and sounds in words into your head. More pictures, diagrams. There was one of interest I did want to get down to before we do wrap this up. We'll probably finish on that one and not go too much for it, but kind of a little diagram that does kind of demonstrate exactly how your sort of TV, cable box, and Xbox and all that kind of stuff are sort of synchronized together to provide to create a bubble of frequencies for entertainment purposes, according to the patent's purpose. But dual technology is just to immerse you in a field of mind control and thought implantation frequencies. Apparatus and method of broadcasting audible sound using ultrasonic sound as a carrier. You can kind of see a house and a car being targeted by the frequencies that can then be, the car or the house will act as a conductor or receiver. Pulsative manipulation of the nervous system. That one's a little bit disturbing. If you want to look into that one on your own, do so at your own risk. Method and device for implanting radio frequencies. There is a diagram, I think, of a head and the frequencies being implanted, maybe, or the bubble that they create in which the frequency will, your head will be submerged in, which will then be subjected to the frequencies. Multifunctional radio frequency directed energy system. Goodness gracious me. Some of this you just don't even want to know exists, but unfortunately we do need to know exists because we need to determine if or not this is being used against us. Nervous system excitation device. I'm not sure if I'm reading that correctly. Method and system for simplifying speech waveforms. Stop us using big words. Let's simplify speech, and use things like lol, OMG, lamo instead of actual words. Stuff like that. Intraoral electronic. Where is it? I'm sure it wasn't this far down. Maybe I've already passed it, but I don't think so. I'm moving on as swiftly as I can. I could get quite sidetracked here. And there it is. That is the picture I wanted to show you. And as you can see, there's an individual that could be you or I, and there's a TV, what could be a VCR, a cable box, receiver, maybe even a video game plugged in. You can see they're all wired up together and also plugged into an AC mains. But this is the apparatus to affect brainwave entertainment over premise power line wiring. James David Honeycraft and John Honeycraft Jr. are the inventors and assignees of this patent, and this invention discloses an apparatus and method to affect brainwave entertainment by very low frequency exclusive OR in brackets XCR modulation of a very high frequency carrier over a premise power line alternating current, AC, which every major appliance is plugged into. A microcontroller with a stored program memory space is used to store and produce waveforms that lead to brainwave entertainment by controlling a H-bridge capable of generating bipolar square waves, which output is capacitive, coupled to a permanent AC power line. So all of our technology is constantly plugged in to the power mains, and while it is the output, the output of these frequencies is permanent, trying to keep us entertained. But the microcontroller to determine whether to produce daytime or nighttime entertainment frequencies. Again, this can control our nightmares and our dreams, or what we think and behave in the day. So it knows when we're sleeping. It knows when we are awake. So you better watch out, for goodness sake. And that is the full pattern, US 8579793. Look into that yourself, but just let that little diagram sink in, that all of those things we have in our household, and all of it was technology designed to stimulate the brain, tell us how to feel, tell us how to think. With that being said, guys, we will return hopefully now to the Reality Decoded Thrift Store studio live for reaction, feedback, discussion and chat before we do end this feature presentation. Thanks for your patience, and we will hopefully hear from you very soon what you had to think on this presentation. It was brought to you by Shit Video Productions on behalf of Reality Decoded.
Reality hits you hard, bro.
Wake up to reality. Nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world. The longer you live, the more you will realize that the only things that truly exist in this reality are merely pain, suffering, and futility. Listen. Everywhere you look in this world, wherever there is light, there will always be shadows to be found as well.
Welcome back, and welcome Gusset Girl Almal. 2 nights in a row, you gusseted it up at the end of the presentations. Hopefully, guys, you did found that entertaining, interesting, and educational. And if you found it enjoyable, then there might be something a little bit wrong with you, or maybe some of the technology being used against you that we just is being used against us, that we just saw. Camera on. Let's get rid of our presentation. Hopefully, welcome back, everyone. So as I said, lots of stuff to digest in there, but again, the more information that you have that does display how much of this technology does exist, and seriously, check out that pattern list, and you probably won't ever want to go outside again or get outside of a Mylar tinfoil encrusted shield protective homemade buddle. Indeed, Almal, it's better late than never. I know you try, although I could be do or do not. There is no try. Quote from Empire Strikes Back in Yoda, of course. But as I said, in recent weeks, guys, we have when we sort of saw those CNN reports from back in the 1980s, when the government and DOD are sort of denying any knowledge or doesn't exist. Might be the Russians, though. They could be working on this stuff. Just a couple of weeks, the government said, yeah, this kind of technology does exist, but rest assured, it's nothing to do with us, when we've just seen that nearly 40 years ago, they were developing and researching stuff, and we just saw a list of 100 listed US patents, although we didn't see every single one of those 100. As I said, it would have taken another 3 hours to get to the bottom of that list, at the very, very least. But all the denial from the 80s, there was all the evidence that it exists. Who's lying? The evidence or the government? What do you think? And more importantly, do you think that that technology is being used against the population, not only of the globe, but the United States? That should have been the other way around. But I certainly sometimes think and consider to myself, what the fuck am I thinking? NRDs, even my thoughts, and I've also experienced quite a few of the symptoms. I have spoken about this before, but with a saturation of frequencies, and with that little diagram that we just saw at the end of that presentation in the patent list, that's every household in the world, and there's a patent for technology entertainment frequencies. What's that all about? Seriously, it's not about us enjoying our entertainment. It's about while we're watching our entertainment, what they can pump in there, and then while we're asleep and the entertainment isn't off, okay, they've turned the TV off, we can pump some more frequencies out. And like I posted a comment, did Atari program our dreams and nightmares? Elmo. So I swear this happened to me last weekend. I was cleaning the kitchen, listening to my tunes and thinking of my baby boy and Christmas, and the song he always sung that made me laugh, and boom, it was the next song to come out on the radio. No, yeah, you're right, in a Christmas song in January, not January, June. I can imagine that would spook you, and just out of the blue, I've just heard pouring rain start to descend outside, and I just went outside about 5 minutes ago to have a smoke, and it was almost clear skies. I can imagine that would spook me, and I'm not going to lie, that's sometimes happened to me a little, once or twice, not necessarily with songs, but I've sort of been thinking about stuff in relation to presentations or what have you, in future, topics of discussion, and lo and behold, I'm like, I'm sure I only thought of that now. Sometimes when we talk, we do know that the microphone listens and it will pay it. And this is kind of why they've taught us to Google things, because to activate your Google Assistant or your Google Nest, you hey Google, and then it turns on. So in the background, well, Google it. Then boom, 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 Google activates, listens to what you're talking about, and okay, they want to Google this. I save them the trouble and I'll put it on their news feed. But we've seen that there is technology that can read our thoughts. Most of this technology is headphone, very similar to what headphones look like in sort of each and every instance that we just witnessed there, that all of it looked like headphones, and the majority of society is walking down with their heads down, which makes it much more easier for them to control with headphones in. And that was the case, I spoke about Pokemon Go in many times. That was an experimentation into this technology, into turning us into remote controlled drones that they can direct at a whim and away. And were some of those deaths that were caused as a result of people playing and being distracted by Pokemon Go? Was it because they were maybe distracted in the game, or was it because maybe, I wonder if we can get little Darren here to walk in front of a oncoming train while he's looking for Pikachu? We did! Success! Okay, let's go and see if we can get some guy to walk into a deep lake while he's not paying attention, checking out if he can find a Butterfree. And I excuse the fact that I do know some of the Pokemon characters. As you should know, I'm a geek, spent a lot of time and days working in and within the pages of comic books and such force. I kept wearing earrings as an experiment. Again, earrings, metal that we wore in our ears, and now, goodness gracious me, people have almost everything but their ears pierced. Why men think that they need to get their dick pierced, I will never know. It's the last thing in the world I would. But again, is this mind control? What man in his right mind once upon a time thought, what a great idea was if someone sticks a big needle through my penis and then puts a couple of rings in there? I can't think of one. I got something called prickly heat. I've been getting prickly heat recently. My ex-wife actually used to suffer from prickly heat. Now, I do love the sun, and I am a slut for the sun, as some of you may or may not. And I very rarely get sunburn, or very rarely get sunstroke. But prickly heat, all up, I mean, if you could show me, but you probably can't see, but all up here on my left, right side, I got like little tiny bumps that are what I believe the result of prickly heat. And it was a very interesting day yesterday down at the beach, because some of you in the Facebook group will have seen the relentless chemtrading. I was almost like, I was very tempted to live stream. Let's look at the streaming as it's happening. But I was sort of updating as in when I'm sort of, and it was constant X's and crosses being sprayed in the sky yesterday. And although the sun was out and it was supposedly 26 degrees, you couldn't, it's like there's a filter or something that you couldn't quite feel the sun. But I did get the sort of prickly heat, itching effect. And we heard what, before you come in, a very bizarre woman from the government doing a TED talk trying to convince us that please really think hard and carefully about whether we should use electromagnetic frequency weaponry is a more humane option than bullets and bombs, again giving us the rope to hang ourselves and making it look as though it was our decision to accept their choice. But she did show the active denial technology that is a microwave weapon that they say, oh, we only set it at 1 millimeter and it's like 3 layers and it sort of burns you, but you could turn that dial up, and it was even there in plain sight. They said we're going to look at the mid-range, but max power can turn people to explode with the directed energy weaponry known as active denial system, and it was right there in front of your face. They weren't even trying to hide it, they just concentrated on the mid-range, which does make you burn. And again, is this prickly heat part of what this directed energy, is it active denial being tested on us? What's DS saying? UVC rays from the sun have been reaching the ground for a few years now. They're not supposed to be able to travel through the atmosphere. Yes, the sun does. They now, why? Sorry, I don't know what that was about. Did I read that right? Yes, the sun does. They do. Sorry, and again, I'm sort of feeling a bit hazy. And during the end of, I was reading the end of the first article. Honestly, like when I was looking at the screen, the right side was like, what the hell is going on? And it was like a struggle to read the words. And even though I could sort of see the words, it was a little bit difficult to read some of them. COVID-19 made it worse. No pollution is helping block it. I've heard that too, DS. You think there is, that's all there is to it. I burned last week on my back and I didn't know it. It was really itchy, and when I looked to see what it was, I had burned. 3 days later, I used to be able to tell by the heat and soreness from the burn, but it was nothing like that. The sun is very white now, right? Not yellow. Atmosphere is clean. Not so much yesterday, Devil Speak. They were doing absolutely everything they possibly could to pollute the atmosphere with the amount of chemtrail that was going over. It is white. We coloured them yellow as kids for some reasons. It looks more like white and had to, yeah, that's it. You know, again, part of the programmatic of childhood. Like maybe, you know, that is the deception. We colour it yellow, but it's actually white. Most other stars are white when we look at the sky, right? At night time, but our close one would be always depicted as yellow. But you know, sometimes, you know, in the morning it's very, very red or orangey. Sometimes at sunset it can be almost purple. The frequency would just make us slaves. Well, that's kind of what they want, slaves. They do need a few odds and bods and souls to pull levers and press buttons, although the majority of it is going to be automated. And you know, we heard a disturbing thing yesterday from one of the grocery stores now that they here in Toronto. They've got like the carts, and they've got a tablet built into the handset sort of thing, and it's a scanner. As you walk around with your cart, you scan it, put it in the cart, and then when you finish, you just tap your card on the screen and walk out with the cart. No need to absolutely see a person or even go to a counter anymore. No more war, just work. Exactly, and this is sort of for a safe and secure society. You know, let's just stay at home and electronically work. We'll plug you in and you can just smash the bell and hit the like in your mind while we're digitally stimulating you. But definitely like the remote control humans, the drones and the clones, and they are kind of turning us into human robots, and possibly coming out of the COVIDian era and whatever's next, the non-binary transhumanism society will be what is going to be the mold for, I believe, the one world order. and even non-binary individuals is a computerized term. You know, binary code is what computers are programmed on, and you know, non-binary individuals are non-computer programmed beings, because you have to program computers with binary code, but you don't have to program humans with binary code. That is why they're non-binary. And a lot of the younger people in a couple of sort of those sort of hipstery punk types we saw, this is so cool, I can't wait to try remote control human technology. And you know, you put a helmet on, your buddy can remote control you. It's not about your buddy being able to remote control you. Of course it isn't about your buddy in sort of having some fun times, making sort of them go the wrong direction or fall off their bike. It's about the government being able to control you. And Almel, Bird Box. As I said, you encouraged me to watch just because you wanted to know what, you know, I'm glad you encouraged me to watch it. This technology making people suicide, this is what they possibly are programming us subliminally to do, or a large proportion of people. In at any given time, your cell phone can deliver that frequency to you. Terminators were never going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They were never going to be cool. You know, liquid forms that could make weapons out of their hands and run very fast after you. There they are. This is our Terminator right there. We carry around our exterminator, and again, you know, this is a little tiny robot that can target frequencies. Where are we at? 3 hours and 29 minutes. You know what, guys, let's try for a 33333 stream. I am going to wrap it up because it's a little bit late, and I do want to sort of get myself a little bit of R&R before I try to sleep. And my mind even now is starting to feel a little bit cloudy and foggy, and sometimes I have noticed in the past when I have been sort of looking particularly at these sort of topics, electromagnetic frequency, I do experience some very, very weird symptoms, but we were lucky. We managed to get through a stream, although it did get shut down for a little short while during that weird lady trying to convince us all that electromagnetic frequency weaponry is a good idea, and she urges us to reconsider it so that her and her military and government buddies can actually go ahead and put it into use. But as I said, I do feel a little bit fried, and to be honest with you, this was sort of a bit of a presentation that was at the end a little bit half-hearted on my behalf, and that is because I sort of started to do this last week. I had lots of problems algorithmically, possibly a result of targeting, as some of the previous subjects in community strikes, passive censorship, shadow banning that I've experienced on both my channels. It's something I've experienced more than once in the past, quite a lot of times before then. The microphone has been deactivated without me deactivating it. Is that just a glitch, or is that robotic programming or commands to try to stop the truth? And as I said, it was a little bit of an effort, and I sort of done a lot of recording only to find out that there was no audio, and it was sort of a little bit hard to sort of refine the enthusiasm and find the same kind of train of thought that I had when I initially had done it for the second time around, which is why I do try to do everything in one take. You kind of lose the moment otherwise, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to retrace the steps. But from my perspective, I got it done, I finished it, it got put up, and we got through stream 3. That's a win-win for me. We had at 1.15 people watching. We've got a couple of newbies that seem to be part and parcel of the reality community that we have got here. So luckily enough, now I can go back and delete a whole lot of stuff in my gallery and things that I've got recorded. I've got a shitload of stuff from a whole bunch of previous presentations I need to clear out of, and sort of piece into together parts and parcels here. Oh, that's an interesting bit of information. I'll record that and save it for a later date, and then, do you know what I mean? It's getting a bit of a hardship to find what's what in and amongst everything. So I'm gonna have a good clear out and hopefully try to come back real soon. There might be even a chance and a possibility tomorrow. We are due thunderstorms. If it is rainy and thundery, I'm unlikely to be able to get any suntan time. We'll be going to the beach, so if or not we put together a show or something tomorrow, As some of you do know, I can throw it together on a whim with a couple of hours. We can wing it, script, presentation free, and sometimes I can take days upon days upon days putting together presentations that maybe only 6 people will watch. So luckily enough, we have been above the double figures tonight. That's one of my very, very small milestones and goals I set for myself. 50 views, 10 viewers. I'm not looking to go viral. I don't care about thumbs up. I don't care about there being 7 people and only 3 thumbs up. I'm not telling you thumbs up. You choose to like it. That is your own independent thought, and this is what thought control is all about. Regain your independent thought. All the information I've given you to hear tonight should be a little bit of an eye-opener for you and should at least get your thought thinking, well, hold on a minute. Am I thinking my own thoughts, or should I just take a step back and think if it is my own independent thought? As again, sorry guys, my brain is starting to get a little bit fried. Indeed, quality, not quantity. I don't know if or not these shit video productions could pass as quality, but I do put some effort and do try to sort of make it a little bit somewhat entertaining, although some of the subjects are a little bit dark and disturbing. I must admit we've gone way beyond the 333 mark, so maybe an extra couple of 10 minutes. Anyone got anything else to say or add to this evening's presentation? As I said, sorry guys, I sort of have gone a little bit brain dead. If not, that is the frequency in my bubble, and I do have a lot of stuff going on. I'm in close proximity. As I said, I've got my computer there, I've got my TV there, which has got a Chromecast, and I've got my phone that I use to type on. I don't know why I can't use a keyboard to type very well at all, which is bad. I'm always using the phone. Sometimes I wonder if we charge it when we're using it, do you know what I mean? You know, like you got the crank radio, maybe when we keep scrolling, somehow we're empowering the phone a little bit. You got 10 likes and had a few new viewers. I didn't even see I had 10 likes. That is that's another achievement. I don't think I often get 10 likes, but you know, again, I'm not sort of doing. I'd rather people read the information or watch the information that I share. And you know, something I did mention earlier, that sometimes I do find that the information I share does only seem to be interesting when it's live. When you sort of have to watch it on your own, or I put an upload, the views are very much often lower than the live stream, and I hardly ever get any comments or feedback on it. And you know, I'd rather you watch it than just give a thumbs up and pretend you watched it, or say you watched them all and actually don't do so. Like I said, I don't want thumbs up. I want to share information because this is information that they don't want you to know, and the more people know this information, the better, in my opinion. So as I said, I've delivered the information for you. I've done most of the hard work. I'm the one that goes through various search engines and uses various browsers other than Google. The only time I use Google is when I want to see what the mainstream are throwing at us and what Google wants us to be reading. But I use a variety of search engines. I do endless looking at some of these articles, and then for some unbeknown bizarre reason why I took it upon myself to go to such stringent and lengthy measures, editing things that often go unnoticed, and that's sort of sometimes the little 4-second transitions between articles. Sometimes that 4 seconds takes 45 minutes to put together, believe it or believe it not. And again, YOY doesn't really make any impact to the delivery of the information. And that's just me being a personal geek, I guess, and getting far too into film making. And that's what I'm saying, guys. I've done pretty much all the hard work for you. I've brought everything you need to know. You can repeat what I've said. You can share this video. You can do your own research. But this stuff has to get out. Stop copying and pasting dumb vacation, fun, tag all your friends things. Quit with the sharing and agreeing with memes. Stop listening to that jerk-ass shill from the deep state, Milli Vanilli, Greta Thunberg's love child, Tom McDonald, the great faking in Pied Piper, leading a bunch of people who are only in snooze mode to believe they're awake. And bear in mind, Monday, nobody ever heard of Tom McDonald. Wednesday, every middle-aged housewife to grandmother in the Midwest is, oh, this guy's the most hated rapper in the world because a clickbait article told me so. This is your mind control. This is the opinion implantation, and this is your copy and paste cloning of society. And cloning the minds is one stage closer to robotics. Good, don't even look him up. But as I said, he's saturated over social media, and he's supposedly the most woke rapper in the world. He's only made 2 songs. Nobody ever heard of him until social media told him to hear of him. And the saying in the industry goes that when your grandmother's sharing it on Facebook, the propaganda is working. And when you're being recommended on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and you're trending on all social platforms, you've got the #1 record on iTunes, and you're getting musical awards, and Eminem is producing you, you're far from independent, and you're very, very much owned and on the payroll of someone. And that is the exact opposite of what shadow band is. You want to know what shadow band in honest and woke truth is? This is what it looks like, not some fucking Pied Piper with dreadlocks and a nose ring that does look like Greta Thunberg and Milli Vanilli's love child. And remember, Milli Vanilli, they lip synced, but everyone thought they were the most marvelous singers in the world, and also won awards before it was revealed they were just a couple of good looking Dutch dancers that lip synced. So that in mind, guys, we are getting close to the 3 hours and 45 minutes mark there. But again, don't take my word for it. If you want to believe that he is an independent woke rapper that just somehow managed to go viral overnight and was saturated on every single social media on his own merit, that's a lie that you can choose to believe. But if you know that anybody who goes viral was meant to, no one blows whistles that aren't meant to be heard. And I can't remember the other one. As I said, I am a little bit brain deady. There you go. That is why the reference, and we all know that Greta Thunberg, how dare you, she's a deep state shield, is on the payroll reading from a script. And as I said, just because you sing about you being fake woke doesn't make you fake woke. In fact, you're more fake woke as a result. And again, this gives people, I'm not fake woke. I listen to Tom McDonald, and I share memes, and I copy and paste and agree with things. That's how woke I am. But as I said, don't take my word for it. Make of it what you will. I was even going to do a whole fucking Tom McDonald expose. You remember when we used to do Pretender Preppers Exposed? I was going to rip the shit out of that cocksucking deep state motherfucker. But anyway, guys, as I said, let's wrap shit up now. I don't want to go on a Tom McDonald rant. Remember the Beta Boy rants? We used to do that there. But he is the piper that is calling the tune that the fake woke awakening types are following along for. And again, I sometimes do look at some of these great awakenings as this is fucking mind control in a different guise. And maybe the woke folks need to be a little bit more controlled because they're not so subservient, if you know what I mean. But hopefully, guys, as I said, you found this. Caesar, you know Tom McDonald. I'm pretty sure at some point in the future you're going to see him with a Beyond Burger, just like his product placement with a Jack Daniels. Look at me, I'm so woke, I can pour Jack Daniels on the floor. Shadow band, woke truther. Me, Tom McDonald. God, I hate that guy. Absolutely hate him. Because he makes people like me look bad, and some of the other people that are legitimately out here talking about this stuff that it's not truth. We're not woke, we're realists. We're trying to make it and keep it real. I've got no agenda. Incidentally, if anyone wants to know, Tom McDonald has a girlfriend, and his girlfriend's name is Nova Rockefeller. The new Rockefeller. And if you go to her website, Nova Rockefeller, put that in a search engine, Nova Rockefeller, and you can see all the New World Order apparel that you can purchase from her websites: hoodies, sweatshirts, socks, gloves, backpacks, shoulder bags. Is that a coincidence? Tom McDonald, the most hated woke rapper, has a girlfriend called Nova Rockefeller that sells New World Order apparel on her. I'm calling it the Great Awakening, Al Mal, and this, I believe, is what they are doing to draw out the dissident types for re-education. Or that's all I need to know. Thank you. All right. Thank you. His girlfriend's called Nova Rockefeller, and she sells New World Order apparel. But if you think he's really awake and woke and the most woke rapper and the most hated rapper that they don't want to hear you about, that conveniently is on every single YouTube. Like when I go to YouTube, they recommend him to me. Recommended viewing, Top McDonald. Go to the trending videos. He's there. Shadow banned people, don't trend. And he again is a form of mind control in thought opinion, because the Pied Piper called the tune that all the children followed to. Who knows where the Piper led them to? We never ever found out. That's the end of that story, but he did lead them to somewhere. So anyway, let's get little anime Elmel into place. Has anyone learnt the dance moves yet? Is even Maiden? She's our resident dancer. I don't know if she's still about. But it is almost time to wrap things up. As I said, we've got a few seconds to go. So as I said, guys, thank you for watching. Glad you joined us this Friday evening. If or not we see you again tomorrow or not remains to be seen. Depends on the weather. If we do get thunder, lightning and storms, then I will try to put something together for your educational and informative purposes tomorrow. But until then, guys, you know the drill. To be excellent to each other, to take care, to keep it thrifty, and be as real as you possibly can be. And please, all I encourage you to do is go out and do your own research and share the information that you've retained from this evening. And when I do share information, even if it isn't in a live show, it's interesting. You should take time to look into it and not just press the like button and pretend that you looked into it. But anyway, guys, take care till next time. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we will see you soon. So without any ado, let's cue up the dancing girl.
Thank you.